list we're going to be seeing here.
Well, I mean, a lot of decks here, Consume really, calls my attention because I think Mogwen and Geert said it as well. It can be a ban magnet a lot of times unless a player might be targeting it. And is that what we're going to see today? Let's find out. We're going to see the bans in just a second. And Adzikov, I think he has a bit of a plan here because he has not banned Consume. So that may just mean that he's targeting it and, he made his deck list, all of them just targeting Consume and making sure Consume gets no wins in this, Conquest format. If you don't win with Consume, it's not possible to win the series. And Adzikov, I think he knows this rule very well.
Yeah, we see the Crack and Crate ban coming out of TailBot. Though in the last series, Casper, we did see not ban Consume, but not really target Consume. Consume found the win for Game King.
He had some soft targeting, but not as much as we're going to see with Adzikov. We're going to see the deck list in just a second. And we're going to start off with TailBot. Consume list, very standard, I think. I mean, just the bronze package hasn't changed in a year and a half. It works. Why change anything? The silvers do interchange a bit more as well as Weaver's Incantation, but mostly a standard list. Dwarf Control, we saw it the last time as well in the last tournament, so very similar list. We're going to actually focus on Consume though, because I think this deck list is really the one that's going to decide if TailBot passes or not.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting about TailBot's lists in general are this Brewer list, for example, is really different in that it's a dwarf package. This isn't very much a standard list, and Sea Hill in there. How are you feeling about that?
We saw it with Pro Neo and Veterans, which made sense. It gave Veterans a bit of a long round answer, or long round out, I think, to have some kind of impact on a very long round. But in Dwarfs, I mean, it's interesting. We have to see how it plays out. I think it's good in a long round, and it gives, a lot of these decks that don't have engines and don't have kind of these, answers to a very long round where they can get full value, an answer. But it's kind of like a mega last rate in a way. But it's going to be tough to just, guarantee value with Sea Hill, I think.
Yeah, especially when you can't set up the units to all be odd or all be even in the same way as you could in the Veterans deck. So TailBot, he's got something a little bit spicy here with this Scoia'tael list, and I think it's going to be a cool one to see played out. But we then have Adzikov's lists, and we're actually looking at TailBot's Skellige list, which is, I believe, banned?
It might be banned. No, it's Kalvit that's banned. Kalvit was banned, I believe. TailBot has the Crack list open, Crack Control, which it's not Great Swords, it's not, Veterans, which is what we see a lot. Crack Control was brought, I believe, last tournament or 2 tournaments ago, so it is not a completely new list, but it is unusual. It's not played very, very often. I think it does what it does well, but it doesn't really target anything specifically, I think, for the most part. It just has good amount of points and good, some control as well.
That is true. It's actually Adzikov's Crack list that is banned, although we do see it here on the screen. And if you're looking at this list, you understand exactly why Consume made it through. We have Ethne, we have Artifact Compression, so we've already got some control there. Then we have Jan, we have Vilgefortz, we have Mandrake, we have Sweers.
Sweers is the main thing we have in that deck, I think. Sweers is the #1 counter to Consume in Nilfgaard in general. And then we have also, just a deck that works well. Sweers brings down the power level a little bit. If you're not playing against Consume, it is maybe not a bricked silver, but, not optimal value. Still could be good against, sort of like Dwarf, for example, Agitators. All of a sudden they're bricked because you got rid of all their Dwarfs in the deck. They can't thin them out. So it can have value, but it might bring down, the value a little bit down against other decks that aren't Consume. But against Consume, it's just game winning.
And we might see a little bit of a swearing come out of TailBot as he sees Adzikov's lineup. And the final list, the Dagon. And this is the list people love to hate and hate to love because it's got Sabbath in it.
I'm going to be in the love to hate camp. Sabbath is a card that really, gets under a lot of people's skin. It's hard to play against if you don't have any answers. You need to have certain answers like Mandrake, for example, that a lot of players have brought. We'll see if TailBot has any answers, but in Consume, not too many, and that's the one deck that I think matters the most in this matchup.
Consume is very much like you do your thing and I'll do my thing, but this deck from Adzikov is very much like you're not going to do your thing because you aren't countering Sabbath. So it'll be interesting to see. It is a Saturday, it's not the Sabbath, so a bit of a spicy play coming out of Adzikov, and he's known often for bringing Death Wish. So the Dagon, it might
Bamboozle.
Confuse people.
It's the Bamboozle. Sabbath, we saw it with Malegion and Demorcus, but even then, it was a very new deck in tournament format. People didn't really like to bring such, in a way, they're high roller decks.
Yeah.
If you play against someone that has Mandrake, all of a sudden, well, you lose. If you don't, you win. It's great, but maybe it's a bit risky. In this case, for Adzikov, it might pay off. I think he knows Consume can't deal with it, and if he anticipates TailBot or most players to bring Consume, and he's targeting Consume, then it might just work out.
Yeah, I think for TailBot, that's going to be the uphill battle. Although I would like to point out that his Yan list does, in fact, have a decoy in it. Not his Yan list, sorry, his Consume list. So going up against Sweers, if you can kind of time the decoy correctly, you may be able to get a few extra neckers and manage to take that win, and once you've beaten Arrakis Queen, or so you've won with Arrakis Queen, that's where you stand a chance to make it through to the semifinals.
I think Ethne is the list that you really can't play around. I mean, Artifact Impression, and you have Outlaw to guarantee it even more, Nature's Gift, and Ethne to play it again. So it is really hard to play around that one. But like you said, against Swede, I think there is a bit more of a strategic outplay, that's possible.
And we'll see what players open with. We see the Dagon on the side of Adzikov, which he did say he was going to be playing on the red coin, versus the Krach and Crate for TailBot. We'll see if he has the heart of an Ancrate now.
Roach is not something on hand. I assume there will be a mulligan here. There is a bit of a risky mulligan with this crack control list. We mentioned it before. The only targets for Skjall, for Heim, are Skjall and Udalryk, so you have to kind of play around that a little bit. And some of the players have brought deck lists that don't have any silver units, so Heim all of a sudden is bricked, and it's kind of risky. But in this case, it works out well for TailBot. Corsair not great in round 1, but overall, I think his hand is pretty clean.
Yeah, Adzikov not seeing his Earl Decree or his Sabbath, though he does have Iris's companions, but we'll have to wait and see if they do turn out to be his companions, because Iris's companions, you draw a targeted card from your deck, and then you discard a random card. And the random card, including the one you just drew, and many a time I've seen that card played, pick up a card and then immediately just throw it in the bin. So it'll be cool to see how that works out.
And here, Damoon Pirates, 12 points. Thinning, I mean, it's not terrible. It's a card that you don't see much play because it doesn't have a clear synergy. Discard hasn't been a thing for a while now in Gwent, but it's a decent play to get thinning, make your deck a bit more consistent, and still put some points on the board, as well as the Damoon Pirate synergy as well.
It also opens up the Krach onto a Whaler, which means that Machine Resurrect is going to be particularly spicy because you have a little bit more strength in the graveyard.
Adzikov really thinking here. He has no Sabbath. He could fish for it, but without Sabbath, this deck, obviously called Dagon Sabbath, maybe it's missing a key piece. Hint, hint. But Moonlight is the secondary kind of archetype, or maybe even the primary in some ways, that supports this deck. So Moonlight is the point generator. Sabbath is kind of do you have an answer? No. Well, then I win. You do, then maybe I can win with Moonlight as well. So
yeah, Moonlight, it can still rack up a lot of points, especially when you have that fog ticking. On top of that, you've got points appearing on your side, points appearing on their side, and also those alpha werewolves are untargetable, which means points that grow onto them cannot be targeted by things like Coral or Harpooners. So you've got a little bit more safety in your cards in terms of how you play them out. But Vadermaker, on the other hand, that's got weather as well, so you can overwrite the Moonlight. And sometimes you do get a little bit of a cat and mouse battle, although with 3 Sirens in the hands of Adzikov, I think the moon is going to be shining on his board. And
no Triss in TailBot's list either, which is a card we see a lot in competitive play, but not in this case, which could also overwrite the Moonlight. So just keeping track of that as well. And Fog, obviously, the earlier you play it, the better. It just generates a ton of points over a long round. So Adzikov, he knows this. He thins out a Foglet, a little bit of thinning going on there as well, and just getting that engine weather value over this, what could be a very long round 1.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how long the players choose to kind of play into this round, and maybe what TailBot is going to do once he finds out that Adzikov is maybe not running Deathwish. At the moment, Adzikov, he's given nothing away. He's played Dagon. Dagon has played Fog, and that has pulled a Foglet, which is it happens in more or less every single Dagon list. So cards are still kind of well, they're not on the table. They're kind of close to chest at this point.
They're away from the table. They are not everything but on the table.
So TailBot, does he see this coming?
This is the first red flag. Alert, alert, this is not Deathwish. Something could be going wrong here. This may be Sabbath. We'll see if TailBot, the robot, has any facial expressions, but nothing coming from him.
Yeah, just giving nothing away. Absolutely nothing. Though that Siren is going to be getting stronger each round if it's not dealt with. However, those boats on the side of TailBot, the Dimmin warships, they hit a single target 4 times for 1 point. And look who's got 4 health on the Adzikov's side. Literally everyone.
He could start killing off some units. It could help if he plays the Alpha Werewolves on that row to guarantee that those Alpha Werewolves get boosted up, and those are targets that Coral can't hit. So the less units, the higher chance of that getting hit, and just the higher optimal value overall once you play Coral, if you play in this round. Of course, some Werewolves are special, and they are immune, so if those get boosted, then you don't get any Coral value. So it's tricky to try and find maximum value for Coral as well, but those are points that might just matter. In the end, you might need that extra point or 2, and those kind of plays may matter at the end.
Yeah, you can also simply opt to just move units out of the Moonlight. Having the Whalers on your side pulls that Siren. She's not a whale. I mean, that's a bit rude. How dare you? How dare you suggest such a thing, TailBot? But moving her onto the back row, taking her out of the Moonlight, and she's not having such a good time anymore.
Talking about Sabbath being one of the important cards for Adzikov in this deck, there are some counters. We mentioned that there is Champion of Hoth for TailBot. That's an easy, dueling partner for Sabbath. Spoiler alert: Sabbath loses. And we also have Vadermaker with Thunder, so that's also an opportunity. And Mandrake, which is the clearest answer because it eliminates Sabbath from existence. Doesn't care about armor either, which is great. So all of those are options that TailBot may have. He only has one of them in hand right now, but he may fish into them later on once the mulligans happen in round 2 and 3.
Yeah, I think TailBot needs to beware a little bit because the werewolves are starting to come out in force there. We see an alpha werewolf go down on the side of Adzikov.
But that's a target for Coral. So now TailBot, every round that passes, he prays that gets boosted, because if he needs the points later on, if that's boosted, then Coral just gets even more value. And that really is the best target, I think, unless he starts boosting stuff with Parasite. But I don't think Adzikov is that kind of player. I don't think that would make much sense.
To be fair, though, as gamers do know, where an alpha goes, betas are sure to follow, and 2 little wolves do come along with that alpha werewolf, so not guaranteed that the boosts are going to go onto the Coral target.
Lots of thinning being done by TailBot, just making sure he can guarantee his silvers and golds later on, just playing out his bronzes. Demune Pirates, one of the stronger cards, kind of sleeper hits, I think, in this over the last few patches. Definitely worked in so many decks, and they allow thinning and they allow, obviously, restore synergy. So TailBot knew to include these, and just the synergy with Demune units that are also very strong just makes sense.
Yeah, Adzikov, though, his deck is a little bit of a slow burner. Those Sirens, not big tempo plays. And TailBot, he has managed to get himself quite the gap, although the Fog and the Moonlight are going to start to dictate, I think, the length of this round for TailBot, because each round, Adzikov is gaining 4 points, and at some point, TailBot, that's going to be too much for him to overcome.
And Adzikov being on red coin allows him to play these a lot slower plays. No need for tempo early on once you're just answering your opponent, and allows you to really just ramp up these fogs. I mean, Dagon is a high tempo play, and it plays weather as well. But in the case of Sirens, 4-point plays or 6-point plays, if you count the first tick of Moonlight, it's quite slow, but the red coin does allow him to kind of have control over that.
Yeah, and the werewolf coming out there is not a small play. That is a 14-point werewolf there. And also, he's actually got the Moonlight about to tick when it comes back to his turn. So TailBot technically 2 points behind at this point. This is where it starts to get scary.
We remind the viewers that werewolf, the 14-point werewolf, is immune, so it cannot be targeted by a card like Coral, for example. So if that gets boosted, it looks like it's getting big and it's a nice juicy target, but no way, Jose. That is not an option for Coral at all. It's off limits.
We see Heim coming out on the side of TailBot and opting for his curse. So we're going to see the Skjal into the Spy combo. And I think just to give himself a little bit more space, reverse that coin flip a certain amount. And Burner Bran, that is a nice draw.
Burner Bran is very good. A Whaler target is very good. Little Rig being placed in the back row to get dragged later on to the front row is a very, very good sign. And it's hard to play against Whalers. There's a point where you either want to stack 2 rows. It gets tricky. It changes all the time, depending on how many units are played in each row. So TailBot has good value now on his Whalers, although he'll have to play into the fog, so maybe not ideal. Maybe Adzikov knew this. I think it's a play that you can make, fogging one row and playing your own Moonlight units into another row to play around Whalers as well.
Yeah, but he's got to expect with that Burner Bran that you can instantly counter the Skellige Storm with a Moonlight. So the timing, I think this matchup is going to come down a lot to the timing of things like Burner and Sirens and weather and how these row effects are played and how long they're allowed to be played. And this comes down to, I think, a lot in terms of player skill and decision making.
Now, when you clear negative weather, it feels good. But when you play positive weather, when you play Moonlight on top of negative weather, it feels great. That is like, oh, I'm a genius. It's just a great play. And Adzikov decides to pass here. He thinks that maybe TailBot can catch up, maybe he can win on even. Doesn't want that to happen, and he decides to pass. Gives up control of the game in round 2, which could backfire if he needs, a properly, a good situation for Sabbath to come on the board and stick with Adrenaline Rush, for example.
The other thing to note, actually, is this 5-point gap. While it may only look like a 5-point gap, bear in mind that the weather and the fog, or the Moonlight and the fog, are going to be ticking here. So that gap is actually a little bit bigger than you might expect. You have to kind of factor that in. So on the next turn, Adzikov's units are going to buff, and then TailBot's units are going to get hit, and then Adzikov's units are going to buff before TailBot even has a chance to pass. So there's another 6 points just in weather here. So it's an 11-point gap, and a Whaler, I think, will quite comfortably.
I mean, average plays for TailBot are going to be, enough to make up the gap. It's not that big of a gap, but yeah, like you said, you have to take into account. New players might think, oh, just 5 points, but there is some external factors taking every turn that add up and change those scores a little bit.
And it's 5 points, but it's a card down. And with the Spy expended, the only way TailBot can surpass that is either a dry pass or being very, very pushy and generating enough points in the round to give himself room to find that a way to regain that card. And I think that's going to be very tough. I think Adzikov, I think he actually really loves this because he's got the weather and he can kind of choose how he plays that. And he's kind of a little bit more in control in terms of round length because TailBot, I think Adzikov can keep up with him, and this also gives him room to, well, he's found Sabbath. So it's starting to get a little bit more pressure for TailBot, I think, in terms of these hands.
Yeah, if Adzikov passes too early, or if TailBot passes too early, then there's a very long round 3 where Moonlight is going to really synergize and get a ton of points. If he passes too late, then all the Moonlight that's played early on in round 2 is going to overpass him in points just through sheer value. So I think he's going to have to he wants to find kind of the middle ground where he can maybe bait out Sabbath without Adrenaline Rush, bait out some Moonlights to make sure round 3 isn't as punishing if it's a longer round or maybe a 5 to 6 card round. So TailBot has to play a risky game if he wants to. Yeah, I think he has to play in this round. There's no option not to. So he's going to play a little bit here, and his cards are very reactive as well. So playing first is also kind of a negative.
Yeah, there's no whales on the board. The Sirens are firmly in the hand of Adzikov. And on the flip side though, TailBot, he's got a lot of control. He's got Hov, he's got Vadermaker, he's got kind of movement and damage. So Maruna, the Succubus on the side of Adzikov's side of the board, unlikely to survive. Sabbath, unlikely to survive. But if you're removing those units, you're allowing the Sirens to sit in the Werewolf. You have to kind of pick your targets. And with so many targets on the side of Adzikov, does TailBot have enough shots?
Adzikov really thinking here. The more Moonlights he expends this turn, it gives TailBot a chance to pass because it starts off very slow. Like I said before, it's only 6 points. But if Adzikov wants to go for Sabbath now, it is an option, but it will probably get shut down very quickly. That's a spoiler, but looking at TailBot's hand, I think he has the firepower he needs.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, I think, for Adzikov because also he's got a bunch of werewolves still in his deck, right? We've seen one wolf on the board and his 2 little wolf friends, but effectively one wolf. So if he expends all of his Moonlight now and then draws into wolves, those werewolves, they don't strengthen without Moonlight. So yes, he does have Nekarat still in there, but you have to kind of save some resources. And that's the kind of tricky thing for Adzikov because TailBot chose to play into this round.
Yeah, losing control of the game, of the flow of the round, it's difficult, especially with Moonlight, like you said. There's a lot of synergy going on, but if you lack that synergy, all of a sudden, the parts sum together a much better total than just all the parts separate. And like you said, a 7-point wolf is not a great finisher in round 3. So if he draws into that, that could be a lot of trouble. And 23 points up, like we said, Moonlight starts off very slow, but this is maybe too slow.
Yeah, this is not looking so spicy. Although I think for Adzikov, he went into this tournament with a strategy. His strategy is consume. So I think if he does end up, conceding this game to TailBot, he's not going to feel too shaken by it because this isn't a situation where you had a strategy and you lost your strategy. This is a situation where you had a strategy and you had to play other decks and, maybe it didn't pay off.
Yeah, definitely. I think if this series goes 3-2 and Adzikov wins it, you could say it was a close series, but if Consume gets shut down, like I maybe expected to, if everything goes according to what we saw in the deck lists, it's not as close as you think because there was little chance for TailBot to pass, but we'll find out. I'm not going to spoil or say too much about the future. But yeah, there's Sabbath. Sabbath's on the board, and TailBot has answers to this.
Yeah, but it turns out, today, like I said, it's Saturday, it's not the Sabbath, and I can imagine TailBot will agree and very quickly remove Imlerith from the board. Although, he could opt for the pass here, but that does then allow Adzikov to start strengthening that Sabbath and, playing the carryover strategy. So I think for TailBot, you can consider it, but I think the best option is just to spend, Vadermaker, or probably Champion of Hov, because Vadermaker gives you that Moonlight counter, and just get that off the board.
Yeah. Like you said, if it gets boosted, then things all of a sudden get a lot trickier. There's no real tall unit punish. It's more of a control archetype with, like you said, Champion of Hov, where you can kill 7 to 8 point units very easily, which Sabbath falls into that category. So easy kill there for TailBot. Adzikov, maybe not expecting Champion of Hov. It's gotten played a lot more recently in tournaments with Skellige, but it wasn't a kind of a stable card before. We used to see Sigdrifa, Jengafred, Morgfarg in some metas, but Champion, making a bit of a resurgence lately and working quite well.
Yeah, I think maybe not surprising so much in this more control-based variant. You've got the whalers and the other boats dealing so much damage that Adzikov, he probably expected Sabbath not to last too long, but opting to play the Spy?
This could be a Succubus Bamboozle play. You look to force a pass, you play Succubus, you maybe Adrenaline Rush the Succubus, the Frightener,
yep.
And then the Succubus steals that Frightener with the Adrenaline Rush still on it. So Is TailBot going to fall for this bait? Because it could happen.
If it happens, it's a very, very sneaky play, because not only do you take the round, it lets him use Maruna without fear of removal, and it gives him the carryover if he puts the Adrenaline Rush, which he can draw using the Wispus onto.
And it's even more point because you have the tutor for Adrenaline Rush as well.
It's a really nice play, but will TailBot sniff it out?
We'll have to find out. This is gonna be. I mean, 32 points up. You're like, I'm feeling pretty confident. He has like a Moonlight in the back, but let's not worry about that. We got this. And then Succubus works its magic.
Oof. But it's hard because 2-card difference.
Yeah, it would be enough though. Definitely the Succubus Wispus Tribute combo will be enough. And he plays it in the back row as well, so he gets the Moonlight synergy. So even more points there. 4 more points over the course of this 2-turn combo. Even cards, but Adzikov will have the carryover. We'll see if he goes for the play. I mean, it's hard not to, I think. I think he definitely, this deck, he knows what he's doing. He knows how to pilot this deck.
And I think taking the 13 points into the next round on even is going to give him a lot of room. And this is the play that, we talked about a little bit before coming on here. And it's actually a play that Legion back at Gwent Open 6 talked about, because he piloted a very similar deck, is this exact play. You play the Wispus, you Adrenaline Rush the Frightener. The Frightener comes to party on your side of the board. And
all of a sudden, TailBot has carryover, but wait. Look at the plot twist. Now Adzikov has the carryover. You're my Frightener. Come back to my board.
M. Night Shyamalan.
Even cards.
Plot twist.
Even cards, but Adzikov secures 13 points of carry, which is there are a lot. That's almost a card. I mean, on average value, that's pretty much an extra card up. So all of a sudden, TailBot thought he had control of the game. 32 points up, and all of a sudden he's 13 points behind. Even cards.
Yeah, and Monday, no doubt on the Gwent ladder, suddenly Sabbaths everywhere.
Let's not hope for that, please.
No, I would probably prefer not. But I think this game could still go either way. The untargetable werewolf, though, in the hand of Adzikov could be pretty solid, and he might just play the Iris's Companions as an 11 as your last card.
When we saw Sabbath, we talked about him as one of the primary win conditions. In this case, TailBot had an answer, and now Adzikov just relies on different combos he still includes in his deck, which is Moonlight and the combo like Succubus into Spy, for example, which are combos that can also win you games. Sabbath is, in a way, your primary condition. If they don't have an answer, you just win. But if they do have an answer, you still have something to fall back on, and that is this Moonlight, archetype, which isn't a bad archetype. Obviously, it's a good support for this deck, I think, and thins as well with Sirens thinning out Moonlight. So. It works quite well. You play the Wolf first, of course, just in case that Moonlight gets overridden. You have the Wolf transformed already, so you still have the 7 points extra. And Adzikov all of a sudden looking quite good.
With that said, TailBot, Renew in hand, going on to Heim. And what does Heim have to target? Nekarat. So this may come down to the battle of the weathers, but Coral onto the 13-point Frightener. I like it. It's a good target.
Maybe a bit early, because that Frightener could have been boosted up by the Moonlight, for example, but like we said before, TailBot has a very reactive hand. This is control, and control normally doesn't have great plays when the board is empty or when you have to wait a bit. So Burn a Brand, for example, in Beta Maker, you want to overwrite Moonlight with that, so you have to wait for those. Whaler, not enough units on the board. Renew as well with the Nekarat, like you said. You want Blood Moon for that, so you need to overwrite the Moonlight as well. So overall, I think, and the same with the Doom Pirate into Corsair into a Warship, for example. So Coral was kind of the only play there. It seems like he had a lot of options, 6 cards in hand, but not really.
So I think what is currently happening in this matchup is a little bit of a game of chicken, because TailBot has Burn a Brand, and I think Adzikov expects it. So Adzikov, instead of using the Moonlight to try and generate points over the course of the round, what I would imagine he's going to do is play out those werewolves onto a row and then bathe them in Moonlight, because as soon as Moonlight hits the werewolves, they gain strength, and that is not removed if the weather is removed. Whereas TailBot, he needs to play Burna early enough to see some value out of her. Like, yes, she's a counter, but it's kind of a back and forth of who is going to play the Moonlight or the weather first, and how this is going to turn out. And I think that is going to be very crucial in deciding who wins this game.
Yeah, it's psychological warfare at its finest. I think definitely the +7 on the Wolves is a big, big deal. And you want to guarantee you have at least 2 Wolves on the board before you start playing Moonlight. If you want to, play the Siren right after, I think that's still fine. But in this case, TailBot, he's impatient. He's like, nope, I want to play this weather now, and I have more weather, so maybe it's a bait. Maybe it's oh, you can play your Siren now. Oh, wait, I have Burn a Brand as well.
Yeah, is Adzikov going to be patient enough to play into this and allow the points to be lost in order to counter Burna? Because as soon as that Moonlight comes down on the side of Adzikov, I think you'll see TailBot throw out the Burn a Brand. And The thing is also, if he plays the Moonlight now, he then won't be able to play the Werewolf into the Moonlight. So maybe you play the Werewolf now onto that row.
Then you have to play Werewolf first, and then you play Siren. Then I think that's fine to take that risk. But first, the Werewolf has to come down for sure. Especially with only one real way to play Moonlight right now in his hand. The Iris' companions can change that, but for now, it's just that one Siren in hand. I think there's a second kind of psychological warfare going on as well, where if he plays in one row, a possible Triss into Blood Moon, or even like we said, Heim, which is more unusual, but Heim, Nekarat into Blood Moon, could also hit that whole row.
Yep.
Where if you play off that row, you're enabling Whalers. So it's a secondary, thing you have to think about as well as Adzikov. You have to try and maximize points here, but it's hard. There's a lot you have to play around.
Yeah, positioning I think is really key in terms of the rows. And with that said, though, these players both, I think they have pretty solid poker faces, giving nothing away. And actually, all the way back in Challenger 3, I spoke to TailBot about plays, and he says that he feels at tournaments they're easy to read. And maybe he is in fact a robot, but trying to really give nothing away in terms of the hand.
Two options here. He goes for the Nekarat, like we spoke about. It's a fine option into Blood Moon.
Or into Moonlight. He could
Or into his own Moonlight. Yeah, that definitely makes sense as well.
Yeah, Nekarat.
You don't want to overwrite Fog with Blood Moon. I mean, feels a little bit bad.
No, you're just you're getting 6 points, but you're losing 6 points, so it's a net neutral. And we've got points now on the side of TailBot. TailBot's like, I see you have Moonlight. Well, guess what?
Maybe another bait.
I have
maybe
Moonlight.
He's saying, oh, you guys did 2 weathers already. There's no way you have another one.
Would you?
And Burner Brand, I imagine, will come down immediately.
Yeah, I think you don't let that tick. This is where Burner Brand comes out to play. And remember how we said those were untargetable? They're untargetable, but the thing about weather is you target a row.
Weather just happens. It doesn't really think about who it's hurting. In this case, it's hurting the werewolves.
As people may know from disasters, weather doesn't really care. Act of God and all that. I think TailBot is in a very comfortable position here. Iris's companions, what's he going to go for? He's trying to find something to win and then maybe throw it away. Mandrake's not great.
I mean, yeah, it's not fantastic.
It's just not great choices. And this is the things with Iris's companions. Like, yes, it can set up your win condition, but it can also just throw away the cards that you need. And 50-50 on what he draws here.
He could go for Renew into Sabbath. It's still an option, I believe. Yeah. If he is playing Renew, I believe he is. I'm going to check in just a second. He actually isn't playing Renew. He's playing Sabbath, Tribute, Maruna, and Royal Decree. So no Renew for Adzikov, not an option here. Monster's Nest, always a great finisher.
Yeah,
in any Monster's deck. We've seen it in Consume, we've seen it in Death Wish, we've seen it in pretty much every archetype, even Aridin back in the day. So always a good finisher.
I think trading out those points there, trading out that Mandrake for Monster's Nest, Adzikov is going to be very happy with that little bit of luck there. TailBot, 27 points behind, but Skellige Storm and Moonlight providing 6 points per turn.
Adzikov played around the Whalers, played into the Blood Moon, but the Blood Moon was instead a Moonlight for TailBot's side of the board. So in the end, I think he made the right decision there. And TailBot now, he's a lot of points behind. He does have the weather and the engine plays with weather and Moonlight in his favor, but still, there's a sizable gap here. He's going to close out even more next turn.
This is going to be big because it's a Ghoul onto the Spy, onto the Ulrich. Delicious Ulrich, very nutritious, good for you. As this Ghoul shows, and I don't think TailBot has enough space actually.
Restore is Restore. I mean, we're not going to undervalue Restore. Restore is a fantastic card in terms of points, at least. Maybe not in terms of how much people love it when you're playing against Skellige, but in this case, Restore plus Moonlight ticking and Skellige Storm ticking. I think it might be a little bit close.
It's very close. It is very.
I mean, that's an
very
8-point
close.
pirate.
Yeah, but no more Corsairs. So is that going to be the difference? 3 points?
Is it close enough? Is it close enough? All of a sudden, it looks like it's a tie. It was closer than we imagined. So we're gonna have to see that game all over again.
That was such a good match. People love Sabbath so much. We're just gonna have to see it again.
He's a fan favorite. Like, come on, they just tied on purpose to get it. Sabbath didn't have enough. I think he wasn't in the spotlight for enough time. He was played and he was killed instantly. So TailBot thought, I'm gonna give the people what they want. Let's play this game all over again. But that was a very, very close. We said it was close. Restore. I told you not to undervalue that card. And Restore plus Moonlight and the Skellige Storm. It showed up.
Yeah, I did say it kind of comes down to how the weather and the Moonlight is played, and that back and forth is going to really impact the match. But I didn't quite expect it to be that much. We did see a little bit of a reaction there out of the players. Turns out not as unflinching as we imagined.
TailBot has some emotions deep down inside, but ties, we've learned, provoke those emotions. So just make him tie all the time from now on.
He's got to make that mulligan again. We talked about the state of this deck. It's a tricky one.
And both players now know a lot more about each deck. So we might even see different lines of play. We might see, players doing everything differently, because when you have information from your opponent's deck list, you can play around certain things, play into certain things. Maybe TailBot thinks about the Maruna combo with Spy, for example. Maybe he knows Sabbath is definitely a thing. He knows it's not Death Wish. So a lot more information on the board here. It's rare that you get to play a matchup twice in a series. So it's going to be an interesting one to see for sure.
But it also, I think, goes a little bit into the kind of mind games of that. This is the first game and it ends in a tie. And you feel like you still have this whole mountain to climb. Hand states, Adzikov with 2 Sirens and 1 Moonlight.
Adrenaline Rush, yeah, not the greatest hand maybe. He does have Royal Decree this time, so Sabbath is guaranteed from round 1, but TailBot, again, he has the answer already in hand, and he can draw into more later on, so.
It's a tricky one. I think, Adzikov, his hand is really going to struggle with tempo. We saw already TailBot having a little bit more tempo in that previous game, and Adzikov's hand looking a little bit rougher.
We didn't mention it earlier, but the new Pirate has a second really good use here, which is playing proactively when you're on blue coin. It allows you to have the chance to play something that doesn't need to damage the opponent's board. It plays its own points, doesn't interact with the opponent at all, so you can play it turn 1, and it's fine. And it does a really good job of doing that, plus stating, I think, I undervalue how good this card was and how good it fits into the crack control archetype.
Yeah, and on top of that, you can thin it with the captain, like you said, so you're then allowing the Whaler to become that crack target, which then sets up more points into your graveyard, because nobody really wants to resurrect a Demon Pirate. I mean, he's cute, but he's not that cute.
And for those that just came back to this game, this is not a replay. It has started exactly the same, but this is a different game. We're on to, it was a tie, very close game. The first time around, this time we're gonna try and untie this, see who actually has a better deck, and see who can win this one. But it's not a replay. It is a completely new game. Game 2, or I guess game 1 of the series, game 1.5 of the series.
Did you go to Boy Scouts? Do you know how to untie knots?
I know how to untie knots. TailBot, I don't know if he went to Boy Scouts. Robots do a different thing, I think, in their society, so we'll find out.
Yeah, Panda, the expert in a robot society. You heard it here first. So, pretty similar line of play we have so far. We saw this is basically the start.
This might be a replay. I might be lying. This is a very similar match, but I think it's to be expected. I think these players have very set game plans, very set strategies. They know what coin they're going to be playing on, red and blue coins, so no surprise there. And they can really prepare these strategies and really hone their sequencing very well.
In this ordering, we did see more or less exactly in the previous game, maybe pirate captains withstanding. But what's TailBot gonna do? Is he going to move? If he's playing like last game, he's gonna play the crack and move the Siren into the back row. Okay, that is our prediction at this point.
Oh! This may be Adzikov not impressed.
And he's now going to play the Alpha Werewolf into the front row.
Right, Recon. Oh, he's looking to spice it up.
Ooh, trying to find a different Alpha Werewolf. This may still be an Alpha Werewolf.
But it's a different one. It's not the same one. It has a different name, One's Timmy, one's Ralph, so it's clearly different.
I didn't know you were so well acquainted. That's actually Jiminy.
Not an Alpha Werewolf, so we see a different line of play here from Adzikov. Going back to the game, though, this is, it is going to be a very similar round 1, I think. Both players just thinning. We see Demune Pirates coming out and doing a great job of just thinning out all the Demune units that you can, bring out and try and get that consistency in your deck for round 2 and 3. Trying to find Champion of Hob, for example. Trying to find Burner. Oh, he has Burner Brand in hand this time around, so even better.
Yeah, the untargetable werewolf going down there. And TailBot hovering Burner, maybe a little bit of a change in tactics, but Adzikov with a lot of Moonlight still in hand. It's not favorable, but then on the flip side, you've got Renew. You're setting it up to just do it all over again.
Oh, Burner Brand coming down early, so TailBot trying to get a lead here. Roach maybe jumping into the wrong row, not much Roach synergy going on there. TailBot has to do a better job of being a Horse Whisperer, but this Celio Storm is going to do a lot of damage unless Adzikov commits a second Moonlight to this round. Maybe it's a bait from TailBot. He wants to get rid of the Moonlight early on. Maybe, look for bad draws later on with, bricked werewolves in round 3 maybe, or trying to, reduce its impact in round 2 with the Moonlights.
But you have seen that Renew, so this is probably what TailBot is doing. If TailBot is committing Burner now, it's because he wants to play her again. And Adzikov, he's saying he wants this round. This is kind of a commitment, but it's a pretty low tempo commitment.
The Fog is going to help, and the Moonlight still takes next turn as well, so it's really just 6 points, not 4. But yeah, like you said, this is building up a lot, and because Adzikov again was on red coin, nothing changes in that sense. He still has the the space to play slow, I think, and to not worry too much about the coin and the tempo he's playing out. But TailBot might reverse that with Heim. Once again, he has Skjall and Ulrich both in his deck, so he can do the whole combo with Heim and get a ton of points and get the card back as well. So he's good in that sense, and that might be what we see very soon. He wants to pressure Adzikov out of this round.
Yeah, but this time around, also no Frightener yet in the hand of Adzikov. So, will he be able to do the Maruna Adrenaline Lock Bamboozle that we saw previously? But TailBot probably expecting it this time
And
around.
Heim is exactly what we see. He punishes, in a way, the low tempo play there. Oh, this is...
Ooh.
TailBot's really treating us here. He's giving us a very different outlook in this round 1. Instead of playing the Spy, he decides to maybe save it for round 2. He has Renew as well, so I mean, Renew is really just going to be a very interesting card in this matchup. You have so many options with it.
Yeah, I absolutely love this coming out of TailBot. He's given himself so much room, and he's also putting more pressure on Adzikov. Adzikov said, hey, you've played your weather, I'm going to play my Moonlight. And TailBot's just like, you got moons, I got moons too. And I really love this play. I think this was very smart from the TailBot.
If this round has a positive outcome for TailBot, which we'll have to find out what that is exactly, but if it has a positive outcome, the shorter round 2 and 3 are, the less he has to worry about this Moonlight synergy punishing him. So I think this makes a lot of sense, because the moment you play Spy, you give Adzikov the chance to pass.
Yep.
And that gets you into the dilemma in round 2 where you have to play proactively, you have to play, you can't really drive pass. So I think the more this goes on with TailBot in a favorable position, the better he's going to come out into round 2 and 3.
Yeah, I think Adzikov, he had an opportunity to pass, and he chose to kind of give it up.
And that's a pass. So instead of forcing a pass with a Spy, he forced a pass with this really good tempo and really good shutdown on the Moonlight synergy.
Yeah. I think TailBot maybe played that one a little bit too long, opting to clear that burner, and it's come back to burner him a little bit with the outcome of that round, at least.
And Sabbath in hand now, so maybe he wants a mulligan if he wants the extra points from Royal Decree on it, but I think instead he opts to get the Moonlight out of hand just to make the Siren synergy work out with the thinning.
Yeah, Maruna's still in the deck, so Royal Decree still has some decrees to make, and Adrenaline Rush is going to be interesting, I think, with this round.
There's no Triss, though. Triss is a big card in this matchup because you can not only play Blood Moon and delete the Moonlight in a way, you can also play the anti-Adrenaline Rush, just you toggle it, so you play it again, and instead of giving the unit, giving it carryover for next round, it eliminates the carryover. So it's a way to play around that as well. We saw it, especially with the Warcry deck list in the last tournament. It was kind of a big thing that casters watched out for. In this case, not an option for TailBot. He instead wanted to bring a card like Burner Brand and Renew, for example, that have worked out pretty well for him until now.
Yeah, no Adrenaline slow for him, unfortunately. And once again, we see a Whaler with no target.
It's, again, very similar. It's not a replay, though. We can't confirm. Round 2 started again the same way, but it's not a replay. We're going to see an Alpha Werewolf coming from Adzikov. Another 10-point unit. No Moonlight yet, so no small buddies to join him in the party just yet, but I think we will see a Moonlight eventually.
Yeah, how do we know it's not a replay? I think TailBot's going to have to put a shoe on his head. It's the only way.
That's definitely an option. I think chat would enjoy that one. Don't give him too many ideas.
Yeah, maybe it is not the best play. Werewolf going down here, I think werewolves are okay to kind of throw down. They don't gain a huge amount from Moonlight other than being targets. You get like 2 extra points, whereas that alpha werewolves, whereas the regular werewolves, they gain 7 and are untargetable. So I don't mind this play. He's not necessarily looking to catch up here, but just to kind of keep pace.
And TailBot could play Spot, but I think he wants to wait a bit until a clear row is formed to just play Ulrich on a different row and have the chance to play those Whalers for a little bit more points. So for now, I think just gonna probably, just Warship, just some extra damage, just no commitment play really, just play your points, and that's really all there is to it. Warships don't have to hit anything specific in this matchup, unless it's Maroon, I guess. But yeah, I think just a decent play, just to stall for time really, and make Adzikov commit to that row a bit more.
Yeah, I think TailBot sitting with Restore in hand, he can kind of just bleed Adzikov at this point, and that is exactly what we're seeing him do. Second Alpha Werewolf coming out there on the background. Apparently, there can be more than one Alpha. Who knew?
And these werewolves, obviously playing in round 2, I think is great because they could be bricked in round 3. If you don't have a Moonlight, you were forced to mulligan, or you don't find a Siren or whatever it is, they could be bricked. So in this case, he's saying, I'm going to put this on this board. It's only 10 points for now, but I could all of a sudden get a tempo play with Moonlight and also get the extra benefits from the werewolf. So it's kind of saying, threatening to have more points in a few turns if TailBot doesn't start catching up.
But also TailBot, he doesn't know. The thing is, Adzikov doesn't have a Moonlight in his hand right now, and TailBot doesn't necessarily know that. So this is an interesting strategy by Adzikov, although the disruption here, moving the werewolf onto another row, also does deny it from spawning little puppies if the Moonlight did get played.
Adzikov hovering here. What is going to bring out to the table? So just a standard swallow potion. This could give Coral a good target to play here, but Coral's not in TailBot's hand, so not really an option in this case. Maybe round 3, but not right now. And also important to note, Sabbath is a card that we've been highlighting as, it's been countered a lot by TailBot with Champion of Hov last turn, but I have to take into account that not only is it a 5-point unit, it also, when it comes into play, it already eliminates a unit from your opponent's side. So it seems like it's countering. It's like, oh, Sabbath sucks, he didn't get any points. But in reality, he does do a lot more than you think, even if you have an answer for him.
Yeah. We also do actually see a lot more commonly this late Sabbath strategy coming out of players, where instead of playing Sabbath early and trying to keep it on the board, you just kind of wait a little bit and let your opponent kind of play cards. And this is the thing, TailBot, he's trying to bleed Adzikov, but Adzikov is not giving in at this stage. He's just like, you want to bleed me? I'm just going to play like nothing. And TailBot is kind of starting to run out of options. He wants to hold the Vader Maker for Sabbath, but how long can he hold on to that?
Adzikov still thinking here. Adrenaline Rush might be a bit bricked if he can't really combo, for example, the Maruna into Spy we saw last turn, or have Sabbath stick on the board, which he won't. Spoiler alert. Vader Maker is still in hand for TailBot. Like I said, it could be weather, but instead.
Though. I mean, Adzikov, the thing is TailBot, if TailBot passes, Adzikov, he has the tools to do that combo. He's got Maruna off of Royal Decree, and he's got Adrenaline Rush in hand. So for TailBot, like, he's in a really sticky position here, because he wants to hold things like Vader Maker, and he wants to bleed Adzikov, and he doesn't want the combo to happen, but he doesn't have the card advantage to really stop it. So Adzikov, without Moonlight in hand, is actually, I would say, looking pretty good. He's just kind of chilling and waiting for TailBot to have enough, and then he can just do the whole thing all over again.
I mean, he's chilling, but in a short round, TailBot has just the better cards, I think. Even with Sabbath being a thing, you have Renew into a whole selection of goals that you can pick whichever one is going to suit you best for that round and try and find optimal value. And Restore, we saw it last turn. I mean, Restore is just a staple card in Skellige. It produces a ton of points, and it really shines in a short round where you can, push ahead with a 20-point silver and win the game. So. Yeah,
but a short round is not looking quite as good if Adzikov can achieve that carryover.
That is true. That is true.
And I think this is a very interesting situation, because we can see him moving around cards and stuff and not opting to stack those werewolves and gain the points that way, not knowing that Adzikov has no Moonlight. But Adzikov, like, he could just play Parasite here and again just kind of stall things out. And TailBot's then starting to get into a position where do you expend? I guess you must expend the Renew, right, to get the Udalryk. Mm-hmm. That has to be the play. But then you're helping Adzikov catch up, and then Adzikov can maybe still go into the next round with card advantage.
Well, there is no Spy in hand for Adzikov, so he can't really do the full combo with Maruna. He can't really stall it out where he gets the Spy carryover and kind of deletes that last turn where he plays Adrenaline Rush anyway. So he can still do the combo and have carryover, but he doesn't gain card advantage in a way by doing it. So it's not as effective as we saw last game.
Yeah.
There's still a big gap, and Adzikov and TailBot is still 2 cards down. So if Adzikov can keep playing, Sabbath I think this is the turn where if you wait one more turn, you can maybe bleed out Vader Maker and then play Sabbath. But
I think what you do maybe here is you play Sabbath, TailBot. Oh, Sabbath gets killed actually. Never mind.
But he got some value. I mean, not a lot, but some value.
So what does TailBot do? Do you go for Udalryk here?
I don't know. Maybe you just bleed for points. I mean, Adrenaline Rush is dead. Parasite is okay. Maruna is dead if you keep control to get rid of it later on. I don't know if Whisper's Tribute is dead. You have both Parasite and Adrenaline Rush in hand.
Monster's Nest.
Monster's Nest, that is true. So he has a big tempo play still in hand with Whisper's Tribute. So he's still alive in that sense. But there are some iffy cards in hand right now if you get bled out in round 2.
And I think this is where you see these kind of players really show their mettle. TailBot definitely, because he's a robot, but because this is where the sequencing is so important, and you really have to think about what do you put your opponent on? What are the things my opponent can do? And in this situation, the state of the cards does mean that they've played it before. This is it's not a replay, but it's a rematch. So you got a better idea. And how do you feel about that pass?
It's okay. I think TailBot doesn't want to risk it, where he can lose card advantage if Adzikov starts playing really high tempo. He has really good cards in hand to keep for later. Vader Maker might seem a bit on the low point in terms of point value average, but being able to counter Succubus with Thunder is game winning. So I think he knows Adzikov might still have Succubus, especially with Royal Decree being in his deck as well. So double chance, and it looks rough for Adzikov in terms of mulligan consistency, because that Royal Decree might be dead. Whisper's Tribute if you draw into Monster's Nest. You want to mulligan Adrenaline Rush, so you have to mulligan no matter what. It gets a little iffy for the mulligan in round 3 more than anything. And he might just play Whisper's Tribute this round to unbrick something, but it's risky.
And then hold
You're
on
being
to
forced to
Maruna
expend. Yeah, you're
when
being
you
forced to
haven't seen
expend.
Vadermaker or Hov.
Or he had Mandric as well, so he has double option. It was still fine. And yeah, that's an okay option. If you get Monster's Nest, you can eat that.
Or you
roof as
Adrenaline
well,
Rush it.
so-
You choose to go a card down
Yeah,
and
that's
take
true.
the 16 points of carryover. But we haven't seen Carl.
That's true as well.
Ooh.
So it's gonna be an important mulligan for both players. I mean, Adrenaline Rush, you solve the problem of having a card you have to mulligan in hand.
Yep.
And you normally have, so now you can mulligan the Moonlight, for example, in a short round and get not Maruna, thankfully for Adzikov. And you also get 16 points, which is normally higher than average in terms of the plays you can make, so it's correct to go down in card advantage. You lose the reaction time because your opponent has guaranteed last say, more than guaranteed, but you do get 16 points on the board, which is normally equals a card in most cases.
And then what do you draw? You draw Monster's Nest. And actually the discard there, I think really great for Adzikov. You see him nodding his head. He's actually pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
He didn't expect Maruna to make it. And to be honest, neither did I.
Maruna would make it on the board, but it wouldn't make it to play its effect because you have Champion of Hov and Vadermaker. They're looking to fight. They're looking to rumble with Maruna, and Maruna would not. You wouldn't win those fights. That was not going to happen. So Adzikov very happy, 27 points up and 2 cards down.
Yeah, rumbling with Maruna is something that some people like to see, some people prefer to see her trigger. But we do see the Restore coming out. This is a big play. Pirate Captain, does he have any Corsairs this time around? Yeah, he does get those extra 3 points and res that big. You go for the big whaler? I don't think the board state allows it.
It's less points, or it's equal points. It's 11 for both, so
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter, I guess. Maybe there must be maybe a reason that TailBot picked the 7, but yeah, it doesn't really matter too much. It's an equal amount of points in this case, and saving the Vadermaker, not playing Weather early because he thinks he has to play around Maruna, for example. So, like we said before, a lot of psychological, warfare going on between both players in terms of what to play around and what not to play around.
Yeah, but I think at this point it's maybe TailBot's game to lose just looking at these hands. The Renew, the Vadermaker, and the Champion of Hov, all pretty strong plays, I would say, whereas Parasite,
Yeah.
I mean,
you have one more card and you're only 5 points down. You're probably, looking to win the game. We'll have to find out soon. Monster's Nest will be massive. Actually, it won't because the 16-point unit stood on the board thanks to Adrenaline Rush, so it won't be as. I mean, it still has a Spy, I assume. Or was the Spy not played?
Ulrich hasn't been played. So the biggest I think is the 10 from the Alpha Werewolf. So not the biggest ghoul in the graveyard.
in the
I guess.
school.
The ghoul in the school.
We'll
Yeah,
go
that was
with that
better.
rhyme. We'll just flow with it.
You're
but,
showing me up here.
But yeah, TailBot, like you said, just better card quality. And Adzikov, he had, I think the 16-point play was correct with Adrenaline Rush because you had a really tricky mulligan in round 3 otherwise. He would have to kept the Moonlight, for example. So yeah, in this case, Adzikov did what he could, but I think TailBot played the round 1 especially really good. Not playing the Heim into the Ulrich. I think he maybe learned from his mistakes in round 1 in game 1. This is a repeat, of course. And I think that's what really sealed the deal. It allowed him, to push round 1 and have control over the game and bleed round 2 like he wanted to.
Yeah, and also really blocking that ghoul. Bit of a fool not going to school, but 1 card down, 4 points up. I think Adzikov is taking this one.
Yeah.
Not Adzikov, sorry, TailBot.
Ghoul is going to be good. It's going to be a decent value with a boost from the Monster's Nest as well, but not fantastic. And there's really not another option in Monster's Nest. It has some situational options, like the Rot Fiend occasionally in like Consume or some weird matchup in Barbagazi for carryover, but
There's no round 4.
there's no round 4. I think Adzikov knows this, but he has played Barbagazi instead.
We see Heim coming out here looking for those silver cards and actually opting to go and draw Coral
That works.
and then throw her in the bin.
That also works. So extended BM from TailBot, showing his win conditions and then throwing them away. In the end, extra card up, and when you win a card up and you still have a card in hand, you did something very right, or your opponent was playing a very bad deck. And I think Adzikov's deck was okay. I think it just had, TailBot had the right answers in answers to Sabbath, answers to Moonlight with the Burner Brand, with the Heim into Necrorat, for example. So yeah, TailBot just had the better deck for this matchup.
Yeah, TailBot.
But when Consume comes onto the table, maybe things change a tiny bit.
TailBot also now on that red coin, so will he opt to bring Bruverhug or Arrakis Queen? I feel like, do you sit on Arrakis Queen? Or do you want to just try and get that win? Like, do you start playing it now?
I think Arrakis Queen can play on blue and not care too much. I think Consume just has such a crazy power level that Coin isn't as relevant as in other matchups, not as impactful. But yeah, and Dwarfs with control, I think it's also a deck that has a lot of reactive plays. It has some plays like Dennis Kramer, for example, can be played early on proactively, but you lose some points from the Agitator copies, for example. So on Red Coin, I think Dwarfs looks good. It's a control deck in theory, a lot of control synergy going on. So normally you want to play second, and Red Coin helps with that quite a lot.
That is true. Players recovering from that extended round one as we go into this, the third game, but the second point of this 5-6 game set.
You made that very confusing, Jaggers. But TailBot, he won the first game. Let's just say that. It was a long first game with 2 halves. Kind of, we're transitioning into like football matches now, but that was a 2-half game one, and TailBot won it.
You just get a little break halfway through to go eat some oranges, and then come back.
That's definitely what happened. They both ate oranges. We saw it happen backstage. But TailBot, he brought Brewers, so we were correct in that prediction. I think it's a control list, and we see Swears here. Swears, no Nankers to target, but it still has a lot of value against this Dwarf list because it can break the Agitators.
And I think if he times this right, we're going to see TailBot maybe a little bit agitated, as his Agitators are worth 1 point potentially. But then also Sea we see on the side of TailBot. I mean, typically a lot of odd cards in Alchemy.
So there's 3 targets here: Volunteers, Skirmishers, and Mercenaries for the Agitators. Doesn't have too many Dwarfs in hand, so that's a good thing. You can Swears one of the targets, but that's all you can do really, so you can still keep the Mercenaries in deck, for example, with the Skirmishers. So his hand's not looking too bad to play around Swears for now.
Yeah, I think having the options there is, it's a pretty solid situation, and the Swears is going to be intriguing to see kind of how it works out. But looking at the rest of the hand, we've got quite a lot of power on the side of Adzikov in terms of that gold value. We've got Vilgefortz, Triss, Telekinesis, and Papa Vesemir there.
And Adzikov, he is playing Kahir, so Mandrake is definitely an option to get that crazy finisher with Kahir into a Mandrake, Kalvit, into other Nilfgaard things in round 3. So definitely want to get that combo off. And TailBot also has he has Mandrake as well to answer back. So he can answer back, but he can't really delete Kalvit unless he's really quick with it, and Mandrake is in hand, so actually...
Yeah, he can, because Adzikov has Mandrake in hand as well, which means Mandrake can't do the play of Jan into top 3 decking the Mandrake. So it's going to take Adzikov 2 turns, and TailBot has the answer straight away in hand. So,
but there are players that do not play Kahir. The meta has shifted in some regards with Alchemy. Some players don't play the Kahir-Mandrake combo, so... It's going to be kind of risky, but I think TailBot does go for that Mandrake onto the Kalvit. I think he has to, because if he does, he just shuts down the Kahir so badly. And there it is, Swears already getting in on that action. Mercenaries go to the graveyard, and now the Agitator. I mean, it kind of helped the Agitator because now it can pull the Volunteers with a higher percentage, and you want to thin your deck for sure early on.
Yeah, I think you spend the Agitators now while you can, because with the thinning happening there, you've got to be a little bit wary of how you draw going forward. Also, we can actually get the Volunteer and then thin those from the deck as well, which is a pretty nice play. Not happening this time around, but
denied.
Skirmisher going on a little skirmish, and he can make Adzikov's deck or side of the board a little bit more odd with his targeting.
What's he want to do because of Sihil?
Or even if he hits Swears.
Yeah, he has the option. This is just so many ways you can go with this one.
What's he going to click? Will he click Swears? Will he click the Novice? Whose kneecaps are getting broken? Ooh. Put a lot of thought into that one.
Maybe important. These are, after all, the best players in the world, so might be more important than we think.
No, I like it. I think with this sort of deck, they have a lot of odd strength units anyway. The Viper Witches, for example, are 5 points apiece, and with cards like Ale only adding an odd number, they will stay, an even number, they will stay odd basically. So I think favoring odd over even in this matchup is actually quite nice. Although Sihil, you could always draw a random bronze or silver with it instead.
And here we see the Cantarella being hovered. It's a card. It allows you to really push in round 1 and kind of gain back that coin advantage, but it also gives Viper Witchers a great target to hit. So it's a great synergy with Alchemy in general, or specifically actually because of that synergy with the Viper Witchers.
But no Viper Witchers actually in the hand of Adzikov, and 2 ointments and an ale.
Not great. I mean, you can't draw into both ointments with like Calvite, triple ointment, Legion style, or just novice into 2 ointments. So that is the good part about it. But yeah, ointments in hand round 1, not ideal for if you want to really push in round 1.
And Adzikov maybe have to think about just giving this one up on even. Doesn't feel good. Well, actually, that's the TailBot's turn.
The TailBot hovering the Broover. No Yavin in deck and no chance to pull Yavin after the not most recent patch, but the patch that happened last time, a long time ago. In this case, Dennis Kramer just gets all your dwarfs +1, which is good when you're playing a deck that has many dwarfs, which TailBot is playing because this is a dwarf deck.
And it has many dwarfs, so some of them are in the graveyard, so not quite as many as you maybe would have liked to see. And that actually does also strengthen all of those volunteers. So although they're risky in terms of how they get drawn when they come out, that's going to be a pretty big play.
And the magical thing about the Agitator Volunteer combo is that because the Volunteer's text reads summon all the rest of these cards from the deck, and you make a base copy, you don't thin a Volunteer out, you make a base copy, you end up getting 4 Volunteer, which is really, really nice. It's a nice combo, nice little synergy that works out great with Agitators and allows you to not only thin, but get 14 points on the board, which is fantastic. Or in this case, 15.
One good thing about having all of your ointments in hand, more or less, is that when you do play a Vikavara novice, you're quite confident that you're not going to hit ointments. So able to thin the deck a little bit there safely with those cards, even though not having the Viper Witches in hand. He can go and have a wee look at what's on the top of his deck with Jan, should he wish, and then he'll have a better idea of kind of how this is going to go forward, so that if he passes his mulligan strategy with those ointments, is whether it's going to be successful or not. But Adzikov's showing he wants to stick around in the round.
And this is a big point gap. I mean, TailBot is inspecting, trying to get information from the graveyard and all around, but 22 points, even cards. Yeah, TailBot may want to pass. I mean, this is going to ask a lot from Adzikov and to say, buddy, do you have 23 points to expend here without really expending resources you want to keep for round 3, for example? So Adzikov now has to, he's not looking too happy. He's looking, maybe that was too low tempo.
Yeah, not ideal. I think you maybe have to go Jan here. You could go Triss into a Recon into a Viper Witcher.
I don't know if it's with Roach. Yeah, with Roach.
Yeah.
Roach is always here to save the day. And it's enough by 4 points, so Roach really saving the day. This is why you want to include him in Alchemy. He just allows crazy amounts of burst tempo with some great gold cards like Triss. We see it a lot in a lot of decks, and Viper Witchers, cards that you have to build your deck around, but when they have that deck built around them, they're very strong.
Yep, and now those ointments are enabled, which means that having them in hand, not so terrible after all. Whereas, we look at TailBot's hand, no volunteers. I think that's good. I feel you feel quite safe with the mulligan, because if you do pull a volunteer, you can just play it. And actually, Triss.
And it's tricky for TailBot. He made Adzikov spend that Triss round 1, which is a good thing to pull from your opponent round 1, but he's lost control of the game in terms of decisions on how long games go. So Sihil becomes a little bit riskier to find optimal value. A reactive deck list that has to play maybe cards like Skirmishers for optimal value in round 3 loses some points you have to play. Your first play has to be on an empty board, so it becomes a tiny bit trickier for TailBot, but he has great answers like the Mandrake onto Calvite, for example. So still, I think, really good answers to Adzikov's deck, and it's going to be a tough one to call, I think. We'll have to see how this round plays out.
I don't think you expect the Sahil, though. Like, who sees this deck that TailBot's playing and goes, I know what'll be in this deck? Sahil, right?
That is exactly what I would not
PTR,
say.
Where Sahil was rampant. This is a little bit of a surprise. So I don't know if Adzikov knows it's coming.
We see a pass from Adzikov, no spy to kind of answer back, so we could potentially lose out in terms of tempo and have to give TailBot card advantage. So instead he says, I'll dry pass. Alchemy isn't great for a long round. I think it doesn't really have an engine exactly to get great value. It prefers a shorter round for more burst. And Calvite as well hasn't been played, so Kahir's a little bit on the iffy side here. No consume mechanics in Alchemy that I know of just yet.
Yeah, I think that Kahir is maybe going
it's gonna
back
get tricky.
in the deck.
And also like some not great cards in hand. A lot of bronze spells, which is what normally we want to thin out with novices, for example. So it's looking tricky for Adzikov, actually. That's another Alchemy card you don't want to have in hand.
The thing is, the Kahir, it also opens up TailBot's Mandrake, because he no longer is round 3. He no longer needs to be like, I got to get rid of this Kahir. You just need to leave it on the board. So the Alchemy the Mandrake then becomes available for these boosted targets.
Well, I mean, you still have Vilgeforts that can they're no consume targets or no consume mechanics, but Vilgeforts can kind of do that bit in this combo and delete Kalvit, send it to the graveyard, and then resurrect it with Kahir. But yeah, Mandrake is not going to be as effective. I think TailBot still, if he sees the Kalvit, you probably Mandrakes it away. Or this might be bait from Adzikov saying, I'm going into round 3 with Kalvit still in hand, which might mean I'm not playing Kahir. And then he doesn't get Mandrake because of that. So this may be next level. This may be next level from Adzikov.
But Kahir in hand, like opting not to mulligan it. So he's definitely going down that line of Kahir, Vilgeforts, Jan, Vilgeforts, Kahir. And TailBot, if he expects this and plays that Alchemy, it's done. You got a 1-point card. 1.
We mentioned it before, reactive deck, reactive cards, and not optimal points on the first play of the last turn because he has to play first. TailBot doesn't really get the max value from mercenary skirmishers or any cards that he does have. He prefers to keep cards like Hattori for later on, just to have a bit more of better sequencing, I think, better decision making in terms of what he can do with Hattori later on. So just plays a naked mercenary back row, but no boosting to an ally unit.
Yeah, and Adzikov, he does have that Asir in hand, so with the Mandrake, he can always opt to play that twice as well, if he does filter it back into the deck. So lots of decisions here to be made in terms of how you pilot these decks, and I don't know, man, it's a tricky looking deck, tricky looking board, sorry. No volunteers either. They're still hanging in the deck.
And they haven't been drawn, which surprisingly, I mean, if I play this deck, I draw all of them at the wrong time, so. TailBot, a master of mulligans apparently as well, just to add that onto the list. But something important to note as well, a Sire can shuffle back a Spy. A Spy has been played, Cantrell was played round 1, and Dandelion Poet draws a card from your deck.
Yeah.
That card may be a Spy, so that's one thing we have to watch out for. We saw Game King try and go for that play in the first game of this tournament, shuffling back Ulrich back into the deck, but luckily for Casper, he didn't draw into it in that one game, but in this case, it might happen for TailBot.
And it'll be interesting to see how TailBot chooses to play this, because we see him hovering the Poet there, and if he plays that, that is obviously going to deny that
I think
issue.
he knows.
And there's the volunteers. They volunteer.
This is why TailBot's a great player. You can calculate, bringing out the volunteers. No agitator synergy, so you lose out on some points there, but you make sure not to have, a weird draw with Cantrella back in your deck later on.
That's true, and Cantrella, I think, maybe going to be used more for Adzikov's own graveyard than necessarily disrupting TailBots, especially as I don't believe we've seen Barkley played yet, so not something that I think TailBot is Adzikov is too scared of. What do you do here? You got lots of choice.
Not Viper Witcher targets, very small units on the board, small boys, small dwarfs, and a Poet, so...
Small dwarfs.
I mean, they're small dwarfs. They're small and they're dwarfs, and they're also 4-point units, so...
How dare you? I mean, they might be average-sized dwarfs.
They look pretty small to me. I'm a dwarf expert, believe me.
You're a robot expert and a dwarf expert.
I'm a man of many talents, what can I say? But Roach does go back. Roach is obviously, with Nilfgaard, it's a card that we saw it impact a lot in round 1. It basically saved the game for Adzikov, so Roach, always helpful in Nilfgaard, and in this case, he likes him so much, he wants to see him again. Just join the party once again.
Did you just call Roach a him?
Roach is a her. I'm gonna.
Chat is gonna be
I'm an expert
angry.
in dwarfs and robots, but not in horses. It happens. I can't,
You can't be an expert in everything. It's all good. I got your back. So, hold to pass. I don't think anyone is going to pass at this point in the game. I want to see how this Kahir plays out. I'm just sitting here with anticipation, excited to see how that turns out.
The Horn can create a dwarf. At this point, the 7-point strengthen isn't going to be game-changing. The dwarf that it creates, though, can be, because some dwarfs have magical powers and they get boosted every time they see another dwarf. So if that happens, that's a card you want to play early on to get the maximum value from that. So TailBot may be thinking about that, trying to get full value from the Horn, in the case he does draw.
Not all dwarves created equal.
That is true.
In this world.
Some are small, some are average, some gain points when they see more dwarfs. Many talents these dwarf people have.
You've heard it from the expert here, Impetuous Panda. I think with the create, we've just seen the agitators still have targets, so we still have dwarves in the deck. So create, you're not blocked by that option where you get a volunteer, an agitator, and some other terrible dwarf. I think TailBot's in a good position. Adzikov playing out the Mahakam Ale there, resurrecting the Novice and the Sea Hill. It has 2 targets.
Still early though. Sea Hill, I don't think will be played right now if it's looking for damage value. It has a secondary option though, so there is a chance to draw the random unit, bronze or silver unit from the deck. So there's always kind of a fallback for Sea Hill. It's a risky card, but it's not that risky. These people know what they're doing. They're not going to throw it all on Sea Hill saving the game for them. So I think in this case, TailBot's going to play Sea Hill pretty close to the end, I believe. That's how it normally works.
But what did we see shuffled back? Roach? Did he shuffle back a spy?
I was not paying attention, but that is a very big possibility.
Because if you're playing a random bronze or silver, it could spell disaster.
He may have also shuffled back an Agitator if he's looking to maybe with the Swears and the Volunteers out, and a lot of dwarfs being played from hand as well with the Mercenary and the Skirmisher already in hand. I'm not sure how many dwarfs there are still in deck, but it's a big option that he shuffled back an Agitator to try and brick one maybe, because Barclays may draw that Agitator later on. As far as I know, Cantarella isn't a dwarf, so Barclays doesn't have the option to draw into Cantarella.
I thought you were the expert, Panda.
Well, I mean, I was trying to not be too cocky, but I definitely know Cantarella isn't a dwarf. But in this case, that's the line of play as well. Agitators going back into the deck and having bricked Agitators or Mercenaries feels very bad in some Scoia'tael decks. And a Sire is a strong card. It can do that.
Yeah, Sire, I think, really opens up the board and opens up different lines of play with this Alchemy deck. And that is probably why it has been as dominant as it has been after the last few months.
A big gap here, but Alchemy has a lot of tempo always, and Khalvit is a clear option of that. Black Blood could work. Maybe going for Ointment instead.
This is not a nice... this is what's on the top of his deck. So this is what's coming with
It's coming. It's definitely...
Vilgefortz.
It's coming soon. Vilgefortz will deliver the package. And Ghoul comes out. Ghoul has pretty good take target, and like we said before, 20 points difference, but all of a sudden, it's back to even. Both players, even cards, even points.
So this is it.
It's a close game.
TailBot does TailBot Mandrake, right?
This is the moment.
This is it.
The moment of truth. This decides a lot in the future of both of these players.
Can he do it?
Let's not do that ever again.
This is it. TailBot
has to decide.
Does he put him on Kahir?
Did Adzikov with the dry pass not only guarantee that you can keep card advantage, but also guarantee that TailBot gets bamboozled, thinking that the horn hover.
Ooh. Does he fear Kahir? He doesn't.
This is
huge for Adzikov.
That's a good Sheldon's a good option. Polly is also a good option. These are good options to draw from.
These are great dwarfs. You're an expert.
Create
so you
never
know.
dead. Create is back from the grave. Skirmisher coming in. Very good value here from Macam Horn, proving its value as a silver card.
Yeah, Skirmisher
16 points, not too bad.
Back from the grave too. But if I'm Adzikov, this is where you gotta go Vilgefortz. You know that Black Blood is there.
I mean, if he hasn't already mandraked, is he gonna do it later? Do you go a little bit risky?
I don't know. So you think he plays Vesemir and thins the Black
You either
Blood?
mandrake immediately, or you're not going to mandrake a 5-point unit if you don't think he has Kahir. I don't think TailBot forgot about the option. I think he just chose not to go through that line of sequencing. He just doesn't think that Adzikov has Kahir, but Adzikov, I guess, doesn't want to risk it. Mandrake can heal or strengthen a unit by 6. Or it can reset a unit and weaken it by 6.
And that means it's banished from the game. Vilgefortz sending him to the graveyard, not banishing him.
Roach is
Out
back.
comes Roach. We got not the Black Blood, actually. I believe we just saw that played. So it was an Ointment, and then there's an Ale.
And TailBot, I think, knows at this point it has all gone terribly wrong. He could have outplayed there with the Mandrake, but seeing the Vilgefortz come down immediately and burn a 5-point unit where you can kind of wait and get better value from a Novice, for example, I think guaranteed, tells him Adzikov has Kahir, and I should have maybe Mandraked. It was still a risky play. It's not a misplay, obviously, because TailBot doesn't have full information like we do.
Yeah.
But in this case, it kind of is a misplay.
And this is where quarterfinals players not having deck lists really shows the impact, because if this was a semi-finals match, 100% that Mandrake would have gone down on to that Jan, because you know about the Vilgefortz and you know about the Kahir.
Unless maybe Adzikov just doesn't have Kahir in hand as well, which is why he could have maybe dry passed in round 2 and going into round 3. So it's tricky. I mean, because it's a play that if you know he has Kahir, it's 100% correct to Mandrake, even though it seems like very low tempo, 5 points only. But if he doesn't, then you just lost so many points by Mandraking, where you have better options in a Ghoul, for example, in a reset. So it's tricky. It's a tricky one to call.
I mean, this Mandrake is still going to see decent value. We've got 15 points there on the board, and also now a lot of odd cards on the side of Adzikov's board for that Sea Hill. So, you're going to get 15 out of the Mandrake, but is Adzikov going to get more than that from the Kahir with Jan, which is so you get the 5 plus the 1 plus a choice of any card remaining in your deck?
All coming down just 10 points. Nothing too extravagant about the mechanics this card has. Just boost by 10. So nothing really consequential happening thanks to that play. But it's still looking very, very even. I mean, both players 4 cards, and it's very equal here. 3 points ahead for Adzikov. Card quality is looking great for both players, actually. Mandrake is going to be fine on Ghoul, for example. Agleice has a lot of options, unlike when you play against Skelga, for example, where there's only really Restore. Agleice has many options against Alchemy. It's the deck that has to have spells. Just, due to its name, I guess Alchemy is just spells. And Sihil, like you said, a long round, maybe not the best value. Could find a few more units in different matchups, but still very strong. And Decoy as well into Hattori is great.
Yeah, I think the state of the board, especially also with that 12-point Agitator. Adzikov, he's got a Mandrake, so that Agitator is going to be gone. We see the Decoy coming out on Hattori, finding yet another Agitator onto the back row, Skirmisher, and then what's he going to poke down? You got to go for odd, right? TailBot, he's a pretty odd guy, so we got all the odds on the board.
That may be true. I'm not sure about that one. Not an expert on Adzikov's, or on TailBots, but.
You said you were a robot expert. Make up your mind.
TailBot is half robot, half person. It's not just a robot there, but. Definitely playing for Sihil there. I think it makes, like, if you know Sihil's in hand, and I think Adzikov might even predict this maybe. Like, he's seeing a pattern here possibly. These players played at a very high level. They really read into every single play that's made by their opponents, and maybe he sees a pattern here. Everything being brought down to odd value might indicate a Sihil being played in TailBot's deck list.
But what can he do about it? Nothing.
Not much, but it maybe helps in some decision making, in some sequencing.
It's 1 point. 1 point, 3 cards, 2 golds, Mandrake.
It's close. It's very, very close. This might be a tie again. I hope not.
Oh, no.
But because this is, more for the players than for anyone else. This is tiring. I mean, playing at this level, it's stressful. You have to really think a lot about all your plays and make sure you win, and having to play all over again where you were so close to winning, because the tie at the end, it feels bad for both players. Both players wanted to win. So let's hope there isn't a tie from both these players, but that will result in a very, very intense series. I don't think there's ever been 2 ties in a series, so history in the making, possibly, but maybe not. I hope not.
We're just going to be here all night. So I think I don't know actually, Mandrake, because you've got 1 more ale, so it's a 25% chance of.
You can't play Sihil though. You can't play Sihil first. You have to wait out with Sihil, I think.
Yeah, and then Agleice. I guess you want to Agleice Mandrake, right?
You can Agleice Mandrake. You can also just Agleice Ale, for example, for points. He doesn't want to play into the range row because there are certain cards in Alchemy that damage all 3 rows. So if you play around them, even though they haven't been in meta the past few seasons because they just kind of fell out of play, it's still correct to play around, I think.
And I think Adzikov, if he's smart, that Mandrake is not getting played until the last card, and so that Agleice isn't going to have access to it. Which we got some smart plays coming out by the players here.
If Sihil comes down first, it might just come down. I mean, if he expects the Kalvit, he expects a lot of units to come down. There's a lot of tutoring going on with Kahir and Kalvit as well, and maybe another Novice into a Viper Witcher. So.
Yeah, TailBot just waiting on that Sihil to get as many targets as possible. Kahir, odd. Yan, odd. 2 cards remaining in Adzikov's deck. Potentially another Viper Witcher, odd.
Here's 1 more odd unit to join the party. Skirmisher doing it. So Skirmisher Recon is a great pull there. A decent amount of points, 15 with the Agitator being obviously boosted as well thanks to the Dennis and also the Sihil synergy. So great play from Agleice there. Not a Mandrake, but still a lot of points from Agleice.
So let's see just how much Yan is worth. We see the Resurrect. So the base 6.
Odd.
Yep. Viper Witcher.
Odd. 3 odds. TailBot did a good job waiting there. And he has a big...
3 points ahead, but this is huge.
This is a big one. He has to read properly, get the right odd power.
Yeah, odd power.
That looks correct. That is a big Sihil.
25 points, and Mandrake's not enough.
Not that good.
There's no one needing healing that badly, and game over. 2-0 to TailBot, but now that maybe have been a battle.
This is where the series starts. This is where Consume has to be played. TailBot is, questioning his own dominance apparently.
Yeah, raising his hand there, so something potentially amiss, but we will hopefully get into this Arrakis Queen versus the world.
We're gonna keep it down on spoilers now because TailBot is, without protection from the white noise and the headphones. So just talk about life in general, Jaggers. How are you liking this event?
I'm having a great time here. I learned so much about you. You're a robot expert. You're a dwarf expert. Who knew these things, Panda? You're a multi-talented man.
I keep it on the down low. I don't want to get too much fans from my expertise in so many different different races and beings. But yeah, that's just me, I guess. Caster by day, and expert in races and beings by night. That's my life. But we are back. We are going to have a bit of a break, TailBot. After that very long two-part game one, and the game two, he is in need of a bathroom break. So maybe not totally robot like we thought. But yeah, just a tiny break. We're going to join the action very soon. But for now,
how do you feel about those games? We had a tie, and then Sea Hill.
I think players might see the 2-0 and say, oh, TailBot's just doing TailBot things, dominating, going up 2-0 again, and maybe taking this series. But we mentioned it early on. I think if he ends up losing 3-2, it's not as close as people think. He's winning 2-0 right now, and it seems very good. But Consume is a deck that Adzikov targeted. He has deck lists that are specifically made to counter that deck. And in a Conquest format, you need to win with every single deck you bring, except for the banned one, of course.
Yeah, TailBot, he's seen the Dagon, he's seen the Yan, he knows what is coming. He knows
it's coming.
But he knows about the spheres.
He's seen the spheres, he's seen these lists, and he knows that he is going to have a hard time. He doesn't have any answers to Sabbath either in his Consume list, so for the most part. So he knows there are, it's going to be a very tricky situation here. If he can slide in one win, that's all he needs, but it's going to be tough.
And we see TailBot here actually opting for the Yan. He did say that he does like his Dagon on red, but opting for the Yan instead. And we do see Sweers. He's having a good time there in the hand of Adzikov.
I think this is the one matchup where maybe TailBot has the most potential to outplay. I think Sweers is a great counter to Neckers, but there are certain sequencing combos you can do with maybe Necker Warrior and Necker Warrior, or playing 2 Necker Warriors and then waiting, getting value from the Neckers in your deck, pulling them out. Even though they're smaller, even though it's not full value, you try and find some value from them instead of going all in off the start and just copying and copying and copying. It becomes, a much more strategic game for Consume players. Normally Consume players, they just, it's a very one-sided thing for most of it. It's just play Neckers, play Necker Warriors, eat Neckers, get points.
I think it's going to be intriguing to see how this decoy comes out, but look at that hand for TailBot. Neckers. Where are the Neckers?
Where are the Neckers? Indeed, Slizzards are the target for the marching orders, so not an option with that.
And bear in mind, this deck, he's got the Merlerin and the Weaver's Incantation to fish for it, so not there either.
So I think TailBot is just 7,000 IQ, saying, why am I going to let Adzikov counter me when I can counter myself and not draw my win condition? Because Consume 100% relies on Neckers to win games. It's if you get rid of the Neckers, like we were mentioning with Sweers or with Artifact Compression, it's over. I mean, you don't have any kind of Consume, just everything adds up to those Neckers. So you don't draw them, that's just a really big issue. And we've seen it before. We've seen it happen in tournaments. It's a high-risk deck. It's greedy. That's what it's greedy Consume. That's what it is.
It's so difficult. Especially as well with Mandrake there as well. So you have the option to find that reset or banish the Neckers if you want, or just wait until if somehow TailBot finds a win condition. At the moment, it's just not looking like it's happening.
TailBot is not liking this. He had low odds, but I mean, this is going to make it so much worse.
Oh, it's just painful. And like you can see just how unreactive he is.
He's thinking. He can't really think about this much. He really has to. He can blacklist the Slizzard,
and it's not there.
And that's if Adzikov knows what he's doing, and I think Adzikov knows what he's doing. If a Consume player drive passes round one, there's only one option. There's no other chance, and Adzikov's going to play into this round. Even if he knows that TailBot has drawn Neckers, it's just better, I think.
Yeah,
to not give Consume a huge round 3, obviously.
Don't give them an out, but oh man, it's such a shame. Like from this point of view, it's such a shame because it would have been interesting to see how TailBot manages to counter Adzikov's strategy, but TailBot can't even play his strategy.
I mean, there's the option to consume, and consume again, enough times to where the Neckers grow above the highest ADC value, which is going to be Necker Warrior. So when those Neckers get to 10, you can finally pull it out, but you're already playing against Sweers. It just makes it so much worse.
Yeah,
and I think TailBot knows this. I mean,
And yeah, Triss knows as well. This is just great for Adzikov, as we see the Roach come out, then the Novice, then the Solo Potion.
22-point opening, not too shabby.
No, not shabby at all.
And now TailBot, he knows that he has a way to bring out these Neckers. He has to get them above 10 and use ADC to bring them out. Or actually Slizzard, yeah, Slizzards are all in the deck, so Marching Orders is not an option. Monster's Nest, you can play Behemoth, for example, to try and, get some points on the board. And
Against Witchers? Viper Witchers?
yeah, maybe, probably not a good option. This is why I'm a caster, not a pro player.
It's just, I don't know what you do as TailBot. Cry? No, I mean, he's a robot. Like, robots can't cry, so this is going to be a tough one, and we'll see whether he kind of tries to think up some sort of win condition, or how long he chooses to kind of allow this to go on, because
you don't even have anything to consume either. You have to play like a Forktail or like a Vran from nothing, and then it's just terrible. You don't even have a target to consume to start consuming. It's just like the least optimal way of playing this deck possible.
Yeah, or a Neca Warrior onto nothing, and that is showing Adzikov.
Yeah, this says, hey, Adzikov, just defeat me any way you want, because if you lose this game, well, there's things that I have to start questioning, because TailBot already had a very low percent chance to win this game with Swears, which is the huge counter to Neckers, but right now it's looking so much in favor of Adzikov.
Yeah, I think I was excited to see whether he could maybe use the Swears, to counter the Swears, either stagger the Neca Warriors or potentially use the decoy, which Adzikov doesn't necessarily know he has, in order to add more Neckers back into his deck after the Swears. So then create more Neckers and then use the consumes on each other to then boost those Neckers and have some sort of option for a final win condition, basically.
But at this point, I mean, what do you do? Forktail, you eat the Vran, and I mean, it's just, there's no points. If you don't have Neckers, there are no points in this deck. You're literally playing the units for their actual value that you see printed on it. So Vrans are 6 points, Forktails are 8 points, and when you're playing against Viper Witchers that are 15 points, and you're playing against these huge, crazy units that Alchemy plays, that with the great combos that it has with the Alchemy cards, it becomes a lot tougher. And we already see a huge gap here. 2 cards difference, that is true, but 32 points already.
Yeah, and there is zero reason for Adzikov to give this one up, looking at the state of his hand. He's got Kahir, but he has Vilgefortz to, again, set up the Kahir. He's got Mandrake, he's got Viper Witcher, he's got Swears, he's got a Seer. Like, none of these cards are bad, just even playing them now, well, other than Seers. The Swears, I think you would still wait on that one, just in case it's a Necker Bamboozle.
And in any other matchup, you can play Behemoth with Monster's Nest and have the option to have units to consume at least, because right now you don't even have units to consume. You can't even do that. You can place Slizzard into a Vran. That gives you one more unit you can consume. You just need units on the board right now. And the token from the Behemoth would be amazing for that. Not only the tempo from Behemoth, but also the tokens it creates. But in this case, it's not even an option, because Viper Witchers would immediately rain down a lot of pain on those Behemoths.
This at least allowing TailBot to thin the deck by utilizing that Slizzard to take out the Vran. So if by some miracle Adzikov decides to pass into this round, TailBot then has options to try and find one of the 5 cards that provides Neckers.
That's 2 consumes now, so Neckers are slowly getting bigger. Still a long way away from 10, though.
Yeah, you basically, I guess, have to boost them up to be bigger than the Neca Warriors in order to pull them out with Elza's Double Cross.
But even then, is it too late? I mean, you're already playing, your Neckers are already at 10. You lost so many consume triggers, consume procs on only 3 Neckers instead of the usual 9 or 11. And Viper Witchers will take down the Vran anyway, just to make it even harder.
There's just fewer and fewer targets to eat on the board. Like, the targets are eating each other, and then Adzikov is also just killing things. Like, that Forktail looks pretty lonely.
We see these games, I mean, when they go unpunished, Consume is a ban magnet. We saw it mentioned earlier by Mogwai. It's a great deck to bring to tournaments if they go unpunished, but when a player decides to, say, hey, I'm going to punish all these greedy Consume players, let's bring and then you punish yourself even, because it just has that element where there's a 3% chance or a 4% chance you just don't draw Neckers round 1, even though you have a ton of outs with Marilorn and Weavis Incantation and Marching Orders sometimes even, so just really unlucky for TailBot. And also, I mean, kind of greedy. The deck list is called Greedy Consume, so.
I think Adzikov made a really smart decision here in terms of the decks that he brought. He said, we had Challenger, we had people go greedy. Consume is very popular. And also Greatswords. All of his decks have a pretty good matchup against Greatswords as well. So I'm just going to go with that strategy. I'm going to go and target those. And he's found that matchup here with TailBot. But we also saw Consume on Game King. So this is looking very good for Adzikov if he can find the next 3 wins.
Exactly. It's looking as good as it can like when you're 2-0 down in a quarterfinals against a literal robot of Gwent. But in this case, I think Adzikov can be quite happy. I think he knows he's very favored in this match from the get-go. But right now, he is extremely favored because TailBot cannot develop his game plan. He got unlucky. He had a deck list that is risky. It is greedy. It can work out really well when it works out, but it has that small chance that you either get targeted or don't draw neckers. And in this case, punishes him just a tiny bit, and maybe he'll decide not to bring Consume next time around. Who knows?
The thing is, similarly, we've just seen TailBot draw very unfavorably. Adzikov, though, may draw unfavorably in subsequent matches, assuming he wins this one. He could, with the Ethne list, not find that artifact compression, and then you maybe don't have the counters that you're looking for.
And TailBot has copied the Rotfiend, so maybe going for a secondary game plan instead of Neckers. We're moving on. New meta, Rotfiend Consume.
You heard it here first. Rotfiends are the new Necker.
This is TailBot adjusting to what he has to adjust to. I mean, this is a very a matchup that's not looking in his favor, and he has to adapt. He's a great player. I think he knows this, and he has to try and find some sort of out. But being 41 points behind, only one card up, is not a great situation.
No.
So
I really do like this Rotfiend strategy, though. Admittedly, against Alchemy, it's not great because they don't really stack rows, but they are Death Wish units, which means you're not only enabling your Phoenix onto Slizzard, onto Rotfiends, you're also enabling the Brewer's Ritual because that resurrects Death Wish units. So you got no Death Wish units in your graveyard, just make some.
I mean, Slizzard does kind of banish away the target he consumes, so it kind of plays against the Brewer's Ritual. But in that case, yeah, if he finds two Rotfiends, he can play both of those at the same time and get some increased tempo. But and the Neckers at the end, if he gets out of the situation somehow, there will be 3 very buff Neckers.
Yeah.
Only 3, but still, it's an option as a finisher of some sort with Phoenix, for example, or not Brewer's Ritual, but Phoenix can be an option if he draws into one of them. So. But it's just just a huge point gap already. Only 1 card difference and so many points separating both players. And Swears is still an option as well. I mean,
I think if you're Adzikov, if you give up this round, that's the only way TailBot could maybe find the win. Is you have to give him an out.
You have to go so many cards down anyway, though. So even then, but yeah, Mandrake as well in hand, not only Swears.
Here's our chance. This is. And he's got the Asir as well, so even if he does get into a situation where he could maybe draw into one of the 3 highly buffed Neckers, the Asir could just make that even less likely by putting more cards back into the deck. And as each card comes out, Adzikov, it's not seeing a Necker, it's not seeing a Necker, it's not seeing a Necker. And I think with that, you get more and more confident that they're just not there, especially with that Dry Pass in round 1.
Mm-hmm. There's a Rotfiend from the Slizzard, so an extra consume target there, and the Ren also going to give an extra one. So we're getting close to the ADC threshold for the Neckers to finally jump into play, but is it too little too late? I mean, we see a huge point gap already. Adzikov, very calm. I think he knows this is going, maybe not according to plan, but maybe even better than the plan he had initially. And he goes for the pass here.
Ooh, this is interesting.
He's a big enough gap.
How many consumes is that as well?
I don't think it's enough yet. I think he needs 1 or 2 more. I think Neckers might be at 8 or 9 at this moment.
The Necker Warriors are blocking the Neckers. He's got the wrong kind of Neckers at the moment at the top of his deck. And Mandrake, though, still in the side of Adzikov and Swears, so it's an interesting one. But the thing is, if he Swears, Brewers can just bring them back.
That's true. We're going to see here what TailBot decides to do to try and get past this point gap right now. There's not an easy decision to make here. You're not going to get this in 1 card. I think that's for sure. Maybe with Neckers in play, you could see some crazy stuff, but
I think though, even if you do get your Neckers and then resurrect the Swears
there's a Necker
Neckers
coming in,
with
so it was a 10
Brewis.
already. We were incorrect, and you could maybe do this in 2 cards. I think you could, but then he gets rid of all the Neckers. You'll have to eat one of the Neckers, have the Ren eat the next one, and eat the Rotfiend as well, possibly with the Arrakis Queen. I think it may be enough. But then you're going 1 card down and with no game plan whatsoever.
Do you decoy the Slizzard to get a Necker Warrior? Or has he pulled all of his, because he's played a couple Necker Warriors on the Rotfiends.
I think he's played 1 only.
There's 1 in the graveyard there, yeah, we see it there. So you could maybe decoy the Slizzard, pull the Necker Warrior, block
then
the
you're 2
Vran,
cards down.
And then you're 2 cards down, but you've got Neckers.
There's no easy decision here for TailBot.
You've got Neckers until Adzikov plays Swears.
Yeah, it was already a really, really tough matchup, and the draws made it so much harder for TailBot here. He is really not enjoying this match. I think he's laughing because he knows that, how did I get this unlucky? But in this case, just Rot Fiend, Necker, and any other unit, or does he have enough with just one Necker being consumed? I'm not sure he does. He might actually.
Yeah, it will be enough because of the Rot Fiend tick and also how big these Neckers have become. That should. Oh, it's not quite. Not quite enough. I thought he had it, but another card down, another Necker out the deck. There's one left that he's going to have to. Well, I guess he can Brewis and then have them get discarded. But
he can't decoy for Necker Warrior now. There's no option to. That's kind of a carryover play you can make. So 2 cards down.
It's just
one Necker left, but 2 cards down against a deck that still functions. I mean, Alchemy is still Alchemy. It has Swears in it, but it's still Alchemy.
and Kahir, and Mandrake,
yeah.
and Desir, and Vesemir into Black Blood. There's you got to commend TailBot in this situation, right?
Yeah, he's trying. I mean, there's players that will just forfeit immediately. Yeah. They don't draw Necker, they just forfeit. Because it's a really hard game to win. But TailBot is trying his best. 2 cards down. Game plan severely ruined. He does have 1 big Necker left in the deck for a nice tempo opening maybe for the round. But Alchemy is still Alchemy. Nothing has changed in that sense. Even with Swears in the deck, it might not find full value, but it still finds some value.
And we do have access there to 1 Necker through the Slizzard.
Which could get copied, so there is more option here.
But you're copying 4-point Neckers at this point.
Yeah, it's not great, but it's still 4 points. You're not playing 0-point Neckers.
But you're 2 card down.
That's also true. I'm not saying TailBot's going to win this, but he has some options than Necker Warrior. But
we will see the very first Necker duplication of this match in
round 3.
The 3rd round with 3 cards remaining. Maybe.
We predicted that TailBot would have a hard time, maybe not this hard of a time. The draws have been very much in Adzikov's favor, or maybe not in TailBot's favor, but why play a Spirit when you can just play Mandrake and just delete it anyway? And TailBot, he made it far enough. I think he knows that he was unfavored and just the draw did not help him out there. So quick forfeit from TailBot. He knows the game was lost. There was really no chance, and there was no way, even with brick cards from Adzikov, that he could have won that game. His game plan just severely ruined and countered also by Adzikov. So I'm going to go into game 2. That's already 1 game that Adzikov has won. Yeah. Not a surprise. Swears is a very, very good counter to consume. And we have 2 decks left that also, in some ways, counter consume, Ethne especially.
I think that was going to be an uphill battle for TailBot at the best of times, and this is clearly what happens at the worst of times. And you got to commend him for the way he played that and just trying to find the condition. We see Ethne here coming out for Adzikov. This is the Sentry spell list and artifact compression there in hand.
I think you can keep the Thunder for the 3rd Necker, or you just do whatever Adzikov wants to do. But artifact compression makes it so that he has the 1st Necker under control. Ethne will to have the 2nd Necker under control, and then any sort of damage will get him the 3rd Necker under control, not allowing the chance for TailBot to copy any Neckers and use the Necker Warrior synergy, and it's really pretty much uncounterable.
TailBot does have access to 3 Neckers as well, because he's got 2 in hand plus the Wispus. Oh, the Weebus, sorry.
So his one option would be to hope that Adzikov somehow doesn't draw into the artifact compression, but with Nature's Gift and Outlaw,
it's in his hand.
And it's in his hand, obviously. But I mean, he didn't know. TailBot doesn't know that. He still has hope alive in his robotic heart.
His little robot heart.
But yeah, TailBot, he drew the answer. And this is not usually what you see in Gwent, such one-sided matchups. But in the case of Consume, it is very one-dimensional in what it does. And if you bring the counters, you can get rid of it pretty quickly. Adzikov on blue coin, though. Could be a little bit of a help for TailBot being on red coin, being able to react. But in this matchup, not so much, I think.
I think it's a tough matchup. This is the thing, they're all tough matchups for TailBot. TailBot, he wants to draw really well and he needs Adzikov to draw badly. And the thing is with this matchup, this is one of the ones where you just needed him, basically what just happened to TailBot to happen to Adzikov. And we didn't see it happen. So it's a shame. It's a shame. And I think we'll see TailBot. I feel like he just play a Necker, right?
Well, I mean, you can play around the Ethne by boosting the Neckers first. The first 2 will get compressed, but the 3rd one, if it's out of the range of normal removal, like Thunder, for example, then you can't really. So it will survive, and that's the one chance you have. But again, it's a risky play to make if you don't know your opponent's deck list, and Ethne has not been played yet in this matchup in this series. So
And you have to seriously play a lot of consumes to get to that point as well, because you're going to need to make them a 10 with the Aldrich Thunders.
And TailBot is definitely not happy about that one.
Got a little statue. And the thing is, he knows now, because of the Ethne in hand, he knows as soon as I play another one.
Yeah, Ethne's guaranteed.
That's gone.
There's no question. You can't say, oh, maybe I'm lucky he doesn't have it in hand, but leaders in Gwent, you always have them in hand, which makes them reliable. In this case, Ethne can reliably get rid of Neckers, and that's a very helpful thing when you're targeting Neckers, because you have, as soon as you draw that artifact impression in any way, either in hand with Outlaw or with the Nature's Gift, that draws any spell you want from your deck. It guarantees just the counter for Neckers.
Yeah, and I think this is exactly the point where you start switching it up, either looking to boost them up to that 10, where they can't instantly be killed, but also maybe consider looking at things like the Arrakis Behemoth, hoping that your opponent, doesn't necessarily have removal or uses their removal in different ways, like on the Vran Warriors, so that you can then maybe try and use the baby Arrakis instead of the Neckers as some of your consume options.
And even if you get it high enough, Adzikov, I believe, does play Ithline. So if he would have had that in hand, even if TailBot got the Neckers to 11, 12, 13, Ithline would still one-hit KO them with double Thunder. So yeah, it's not ideal. Farseer is well being played, so Adzikov has that engine support, going to get him a lot of points over the course of this round. And is there a Mandrake from TailBot? There isn't. So no counter to that Farseer going over, from a very start of round one, getting a ton of points.
Yeah, it's a tough one for sure, and I'm really interested to see how TailBot switches this up. I think if there's a player that you will find somehow create a win condition in this sort of situation, it's TailBot. We've already seen him here changing up his strategy, holding onto those Neckers and trying to get those boosts. He's checking out the Monster's Nest we see here, seeing the options. Rotfiend we saw him try to use previously. Maybe he'll go down more of a Behemoth path there, but really just making himself some kind of space on the board and letting that Vran Warrior eat up all these targets to try and make those Neckers just a little bit bigger.
Behemoth is great if you don't expect the removal, but there's going to be Thunders, I think, from Speletal. I mean, it's just the guaranteed option. It's at 9 points, so it's the perfect hit there. Merc, in this case, or even Triss, I think that there's no bronze spells from Consume. It's a very tight bronze package. 5 units, 3 of them each, so Thunder's guaranteed, and just straight elimination. You still have the extra Thunder because Triss creates the Thunder, doesn't thin it out, so you have the extra guaranteed Thunder from the Elven Merc.
Yep.
It has only 2 spells in Adzikov's list, I believe. Maybe more, actually. Maybe more, definitely more. This is a different list. There's still Ale, so not a guaranteed draw from.
And you also have to be careful because there's only 2 Thunders in Adzikov's list, and so you want to try and save one for that Ithline, so you need to be a little bit cautious in terms of how you play this, because if you suspect that TailBot is just going to try and make big Neckers, which it clearly looks like now, you have to kind of hold on to the removal. With that said, we clearly see how the Monster's Nest nerf affects this game, because previously Monster's Nest would boost by 2. That Behemoth would be a 10, which means you can't quite get it with a Zap, but now you can, and this is really hurting TailBot's strategy.
Second Necker being hovered, but not just, well, we're back to the Necker again. Being played and baiting out the Ethne maybe early on. It's a tough decision from TailBot here.
Yeah, it is a tough decision. I do agree with you there. Adzikov, I think you just compress
There's no other chance. I mean, there's a few things to think about, but really the only line of play I think is compressing. You get a big lead, you get the Farseer getting even more points with no real counter because Consume is quite one-dimensional in its game plan. It plays kind of for itself, doesn't care too much about other decks because most of the time it doesn't have to care. It just gets a ton of points no matter what. So no real counters to other decks' strategies, but in this case it will maybe punish TailBot just a tiny bit.
Yeah, this is 100%. Adzikov is punishing TailBot's lineup. He even almost cinched the win in that very first game, not even against Consume. So, I think Adzikov has really come out to play in this event, and this might be the event for Adzikov that sees him in the finals.
And we were looking at Elven Merc maybe not drawing the Thunder, but the Sage has the guaranteed Thunder because he goes to the graveyard and Sage can't pull the Thunder. So never mind about that. Adzikov has it all completely under control as long as that Necker doesn't go above 9 points, which could happen because Ithline is missing in hand.
Yep. So it's difficult for TailBot, and the thing is, all of these plays he's making, they no longer have the kind of tempo. Because even if you delay on duplicating your Neckers, we saw he got Neckers in the last game, but he got Neckers too little, literally too late.
Adzikov, he knows that this round is going to be long because Consume cannot give up control of round 2 and 3 most of the time. It uses round 1 to really prepare and really set up its whole game plan. If it does that in round 2, then you just lose out on so much tempo and you don't have any control over how long the round 3 is. So Adzikov just puts down his engines, make sure to get max value here, maybe get a good pass later on if he needs it.
I don't know. Like, so we see the Arrakis Queen being played here, and I think he has to do it just to make those neckers bigger. That makes them 10. That's
exactly 10.
Yep.
No Igni or
Ithlin
or Shiru from to the 38-point unit that just appeared on the board. No counter there from Adzikov, but again, also no Ithlin, which is the real thing you need, I think, in this matchup, more than the Igni.
Yeah, the Ithlin, can he find anything with... He's got the Monster's Nest off of the Iglace, but that's not going to be enough. So neckers looks like they're going to be
coming
out to play.
They're going to survive.
You pass here?
I don't think you give control to Consume. They already lost a lot of points on their triggers, on the Consume procs that these copied neckers don't have. So you're already gaining something. But this is the way that TailBot can outplay here.
But if you've worked it out as the number of points that it is, if maybe you've put the neckers on 10, you maybe consider you're not going to be able to remove them. So
no, definitely, but
force TailBot into a situation where he has to play them now, and then go down 2 cards.
That's possible, but I think it's still just not a big enough gap in terms of points. I think there's still plays you can make with Gheals into something possibly, or even the Marching Order Slizzard into something to have enough points if you consume an Ecker. So
the thing is, the sentries are going to be getting pretty big. Like, TailBot's neckers not getting big. TailBot, if he does start duplicating neckers now, they're not going to be those like 19-point neckers you see.
Pass from TailBot. This gives Adzikov an out into drawing Ithlin. So obviously both players do not have full information. They don't know what their opponent's hand has and what kind of counters these players might have. But all of a sudden, Ithlin is an option.
And there she is.
And exactly. Oh, there's a lot of good cards.
She's not only an option. She is top deck.
Top deck, a term that you really have to care about when you're playing card games because it can really decide games. And Ithlin there shows up for the party just in time. And now TailBot, he needed 10 points. Now he needs a little bit more to get out of that Thunder threshold. And the Thunder is also still in the deck. There are 2 of them, have not been played from hand. So Adzikov is clear on that front as well. And Adzikov knows he has to bleed this round out. He cannot give Consume a long round. And TailBot, long or short, with Ithlin in hand, he does not care, I think.
He can't make a 19-point necker. Like, just play one 19-point necker right at the end. Well, maybe he could, but...
Maybe he could, but then the Necker Warriors kind of lose a tiny bit of value.
Yeah. And you see that sentry on the board there, looking, not the biggest sentry, 8, but if you look at Adzikov's hand, it's getting boosted by a Glace. It's getting boosted by Isengrim. It's getting boosted potentially more by Isengrim, because you can then go into Nature's Gift, into something else, like Last Wish, into, like, chaining special cards. Then double points from Ithlin, Merc, Recon, which will find more sentries. Like, ugh.
Necker being hovered, but this might just be a Slizzard into Vran, possibly just to prepare those Consumes. Because you can, it's tricky. You can't even play the Necker right into the Consume because you have to copy it first.
Yep.
Or else you're playing yourself. But yeah, in this case, this is tough. If Adzikov has Ithlin, TailBot, I think we might just see an insta forfeit once Ithlin comes down. But I don't think Adzikov's going to play Ithlin before he sees a Necker. I think that's not a line of play he's considering.
Now you can tell what TailBot is trying to do here. Like, he's seen this many Consumes played. He knows that those Neckers are big, and he knows that there's only one more opportunity for TailBot to try and duplicate them.
You see Garrison, a card not normally played in competitive. We'll see if Adzikov justifies it here. What does he find from his opponent's deck? No silver, or there's a Slizzard. That's a good option. You're tutoring. You get a Murka, a lot of tutoring going on here, so Thinning, what a great silver card. Also a spell, so it helps out his sentries.
Yeah, this Garrison inclusion, at first I was like, Garrison what? But it's also really good against Skellige, because if you Garrison, you can then get a Skellige unit, so when you play a Glace and your only option is Restore, suddenly you actually have something to restore.
This is Adzikov's sale pitch. He's trying to sell Garrison to the world. This is the only reason he came to this tournament. He wants to sell Garrison and make it, join the meta. It's a card that we haven't seen at all in tournaments or even on ladder play, I think, for the most part. But he makes a good reason to bring it. I think it just helps out a lot with the Glace, especially.
Yeah, I really actually like seeing it there, especially with this matchup where you get the Slizzard into the Merc into the Ale, giving you yet another special card. Sentries now, I think, on 11 points apiece.
And here's the Necker finally coming down, the deciding moment. TailBot wants to savor this Necker as much as he can because he knows if Iflin is here, it's going to go bye-bye. And the quickest round or turn of Gwent ever played. Adzikov double thunders, and TailBot knows that it's over. I don't want to be a negative Nancy, but I don't think there's much to do here.
No,
it can be revived.
Yeah, he can
that's an option.
revive it.
But Merc can still hit Thunder. There's one more Thunder still left.
It just dies again.
It'll die again. So, I mean, it's going to have to depend on what Adzikov can hit with his cards. He has Recon into a possible Merc.
He can decoy what, Vran? He can decoy Vran.
Maybe
1 point play. He chose nothing.
That's acceptable choice, I think.
1 point play.
Maybe baiting Adzikov into playing certain cards that could maybe get that last Neck out of the way.
But it doesn't.
And so many points ahead as well. Like even if TailBot could somehow start copying Necker, I think it's, like you said, too little, too late.
It's 38-point difference at this stage.
Two cards, but yeah, still a big gap. You saw Game King really come back with Consume and close the gap against Casper, Casper's full test list, very quickly. But in this case, with no copies and such small Neckers, yeah. And there's a Merc into Thunder, so everything goes according to plan for Adzikov. And now TailBot, yeah, that's the forfeit. There was still that one chance with the res on the Necker, but 2-2. We said at the start, it looked dominating for TailBot, but Adzikov had the deck list that would support him in the next few games, and 2-2 already. It's a tied match.
What a series! It's a tied set. We had a tied match, like.
And it's all down to Sabbath versus Necker, and the showdown of the century.
Queen has no counters to Maruna, and no counters to Sabbath. And no counters to Moonlight.
You can Monster's Nest Drowner to play around Maruna a tiny bit. You could, yeah, that's about it. I don't think there's really any other chance.
Yeah, and you were saying to me earlier that the other thing about Sabbath is that if they play a Necker, when you play Sabbath, they can't just pass to deal with the Sabbath because the Sabbath is then ahead of you.
Yeah, it's similar with soldiers. If you start soldiers on blue coin, you play 3 soldiers, or the 3 soldiers, 9 points, and Sabbath comes down, you're exactly 1 point ahead. So it gives you the chance to drive as you want to maybe play Vulgar Force in round 2 or bait out the Adrenaline Rush in round 1. It gives you a bit more of a chance, but with Neckers at 4, unless you play tutors, it's just exactly enough points for the one Necker to cycle and still for the Sabbath player to be ahead.
Yeah,
so,
we see Summoning Circle there in the hand of Adzikov, and Summoning Circle, it recreates the last bronze or silver card played. So it's not good against artifact compression because the last silver card is the little statue, but it may have saved him there in the situation where for Ithlin, where it zapped the Necker, you could then create another Necker, and unfortunately not finding it in that previous game. Having it now is going to give him more Neckers, but without a counter to Sabbath, it's going to be tough.
This matchup is tricky. I think it's the best chance TailBot has. There is no direct counter to Neckers. There is no complete deletion. It's more just him not having a counter to Sabbath. But there's still a higher chance. I think if anyone's going to be able to do this, it's TailBot. He's a fantastic player. And he knows what he's playing against. He has full information. He knows there's Maruna. He knows there's Sabbath. He knows it's a Moonlight archetype. He knows a lot of things about this deck he's playing against. So
he's played it twice in the first game. The thing is, I think with this situation, TailBot, if you want to deal with Sabbath, you have to go Toll. And Consume's actually pretty good at going Toll.
But is it good at going Toll quick enough? I mean, you have to...
You have a Rekkas Queen.
Or you can just Sabbath immediately and then you're... Yeah, I mean, I think Adzikov knows. Both players know each other's deck list very well.
And hitting the Necker.
Yeah, a good cycle there. One less Necker to deal with. TailBot is ahead because he did have a tutor this time around, so he can dry pass if he wants to. I'm not saying it's correct. Probably isn't with Consume. You want to really set up in round 1, but...
Having seen Adrenaline Rush, I don't think it's correct.
Yeah. There's no renew, though. That's important. There's no renew, so...
So this is where the Summoning Circle gives you another Necker, at least.
Yeah, that's true.
And this is the thing, because the last card played was Imlerith. He's a gold card, so the last bronze or silver card played was a Necker.
It was placed last.
Came out the graveyard. Well, out the deck, actually. One of them went into the graveyard.
But this is a matchup I don't think you encountered too often, so TailBot really thinking it through, thinking the way he has to sequence his plays to try and make it out of this alive, play around that Sabbath.
And Alzur's Double Cross does make that Necker Warrior just a little bit bigger. Mm-hmm. You do see the 11 points there rather than the 9, which means at the moment, if Sabbath goes to war, I think...
But Parasite is an option to get it higher. Moonlight can also boost it a tiny bit.
Alternatively, you've got options.
Dagon Fog onto the 11. I mean, there's a lot. This deck knows what it's doing in terms of protecting the Sabbath. This is the Sabbath comp. You play for your Sabbath. And easy peasy lemon squeezy. 17 will normally crush at an 11.
And we did say that TailBot needed to go Toll to deal with the Sabbath, but this Sabbath is going taller than TailBot, taller than the dwarves we saw earlier. He's
in the clouds. He's getting there. He's a big boy.
He's on his way. He's a thick boy at this point.
I mean, he's growing upwards. Maybe not too thick, but he's big. That's for sure. Summoning Circle will come down onto Necker Warrior, so instead of getting the Necker copy, if I get one Necker, we can get 2 Neckers, right? I mean, it's simple math. TailBot is a mathematician, but another easy bait for the Sabbath. I mean, it's going to be another kill, and Sabbath does not stop giving you points.
The thing is, will these Neckers get big enough to the point where Sabbath can't kill them?
They can get big enough, but you're losing so much tempo from just, I mean, you literally get free points as
Adzikov. Bear in mind that Sabbath will reset if it gets carried over.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
But then at that point, you just switch your strategy up to be a Maruna strategy?
And if Adzikov wins the match, he has first say in the next round, so he has a chance to boost Sabbath somehow as well.
Mandrake.
Or he has Swallow Potions as well in his deck, so he has options still. And I like the Fog on the back row. Obviously, you knew the front row was getting eliminated. And you know that Neckers kind of have to stay on the row they're on because the Neckers will shuffle out and go back to that row as well. It's not random. So you know that row is always going to be occupied by units. So you always want to play Weather on the Necker row because it's just guaranteed to get value over a long round.
Yep, so that is the 3rd Necker Warrior there being played, placing 6 additional Neckers into the deck. We saw 1 in the graveyard, 1 on the board, so I think 7 there are left in the deck there. And every time a consume happens, those are getting bigger. And those Slizzards consume?
And Adzikov has enough tempo that he says, oh, I'm just going to sneak in this Adrenaline Rush. There's no need for me to play more points right now. I'm just getting free points anyway from the Sabbath is effect. So right now, TailBot is in a pickle. I mean, he doesn't really have a direct answer to either Sabbath or the AR Rush.
Yeah, and he has to deal with that on the next round. Like, this is me pressing escape forfeit. If this was, online Gwent, I'm just out of here. But this is a tournament. You don't have that option. There's so much money on the line. There's the qualification to the next challenger on the line. And being able to qualify for a challenger before homecoming, I think is a really sweet prize.
It is. There's a lot at stake here. TailBot, normally he's a player that's shown a lot of consistency, but homecoming will change the game dramatically. And TailBot, maybe he just doesn't perform as well, doesn't have the same guarantees of consistency. And in this case, TailBot deciding to pass, possibly giving up control of the game. There will be a reset from Sabbath, but Adzikov, having won the round, has first say in round 2. Can dry pass, but I'm going to imagine that is not an option in this matchup.
No, I think with the state that you're in, carrying over Sabbath, you're not going to necessarily peace out from the board. Royal Decree.
There's no Swallow Potion.
No, but Royal Decree onto Tribute onto Mandrake.
That is a very good option, and it will put out enough points, I think, where there's nothing that TailBot can do in one round. Neckers aren't big enough yet, no real tall units yet, so yep, that's the option, I guess.
Yeah, it's a nice play, and it makes it an 11, which is making it harder and harder to catch up. I mean, TailBot, with Neckers and consumes, you can get Toll, but it takes time. It's not the easiest play in the world, and we'll see the Royal Decree come straight down here, pulling that Wisper's Tribute. She pays a little bit of tribute to Sabbath. If you've played The Witcher 3, you'll know all about that. And easy +6.
And there it is, a big Sabbath once again. The rounds do not phase him. He is back to just higher strength, higher base strength even. It's not even a boost. So now he gets the extra base strength boost as well. And I think Adzikov knew what he was doing in this matchup. He knew to play Sabbath immediately. Yep. There's no counter to it. He knows just to try and make it so that before any Vran starts consuming Necker Warriors and gets bigger, before any boosts start happening in terms of with a consume game plan, he plays a Sabbath and shuts it down right away. Plays a Parasite to buff it up, and then there's nothing that TailBot can do. In other matchups, we saw him playing Sabbath much later because he knew there were possible answers to it. But Consume, it's a deck list that has been very one-dimensional for a long time. Nothing has changed for the most part, so you know what to expect.
Yeah, Crohn's and Sabbath, good friends. I quite like this option here, looking to play the Brewis and pulling those Neckers, because the Necker is then going to get hit by Sabbath, which actually will pull out a bigger Necker, which then will give TailBot options to create a target tall enough to take care of Sabbath.
Now we see probably Moonlight in the back row. leaving Sabbath alone in the moonlight, or not.
He's not a beast or
He's not a beast. I mean,
vampire.
some would consider him a beast. I may also join that camp, but you are right. In terms of tags in Gwent, he is not a beast.
And we see the Necker warrior there being hovered by TailBot. I would protect these Neckers, but do you want to protect the Neckers? I guess you just got to keep making Neckers.
That's the game plan.
So 2 more down into the deck. Puts him on, I believe, 9 Neckers in deck. So
And now
lots of
Adzikov,
Neckers.
he just cruises with Moonlight ticking for points, Sabbath ticking for points, and TailBot, he can make all the Neckers he wants, but it's going to be hard to... And there's just no reaction for Maruna either, so...
The difficulty here is you need to make something so tall that after it gets hit by an 11,
Plus the armor.
it will then hit. So you need to hit, what, 15? At this point, bear in mind he gains armor every time. So you need to make a 26-point unit. And as soon as you make something that tall, there's then Maruna to take it from you.
Yeah, Sabbath is a ticking time bomb that I
So
do not want to wake me
You're
up.
damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. And all the time Adzikov has... And Adzikov! This is beautiful. This is like, in terms of a strategy...
I'm not sure I would call it beautiful. I think a lot of people would disagree with the beauty of Sabbath, but it's definitely working out. It's very effective for Adzikov. He knew this as a third deck to counter consume would work, because unless TailBot would have brought Wisp's Tribute and Mandrake, which is an option. There have been consume lists that do run Mandrake. They're worse in the mirror. Sometimes it can be, maybe not as effective as the list that TailBot brought, but in this case, it could have won in the game. Sabbath comes down, you play Wispus into Mandrake or Mandrake from hand. You have 2 options to draw it kind of in round 1, and Sabbath is deleted.
Yep.
He's no renew, nothing can save him. And all of a sudden, you win the game.
Yep. See, this is the thing. It's an 18-point Propel, and it's not big enough to battle Sabbath and live. And he's still at 10 points with 2 armor. I mean, TailBot, yes, he can get something taller, and then they'll go to battle again, but at that point, it gets abducted.
There is no boost, at least, for... And there's a bit of a, the third Moonlight doesn't help. Necrorat doesn't help either.
Yeah.
So there are some dead cards from Adzikov.
Yeah.
But there is a huge point gap as well. And like you said, TailBot, he's fighting like an uphill battle with this deck. And like you said, even Maruna, there's no answer to it either. Unless you consume whatever's on that row, which is also an option with the Rakkus Queen. As long as it's not an Necker.
Yeah. You've got to deal with the Sabbath, and then you've got to catch up.
It's tough.
It is. It's 30 points in it
I think it's not
already.
over yet, but it's getting there.
Yeah.
It's looking tricky. And every round that passes, Sabbath keeps getting value until it dies.
Yeah, and Adzikov at this point could also look just to piece out of the round and then win the next one with card advantage and Maruna. At this point, he doesn't necessarily even need to have to win this round. He could just piece out. The Sabbath is.
This is a big forktail, though.
It's a big forktail.
And that's a big Necker consume as well. I mean, all of a sudden.
And Sabbath's gonna die.
Sabbath, unless it gets boosted, and there's no option to boost it. There's no boost in hand, so all of a sudden, TailBot has caught up. He had to work for it, but he's caught up, and he's making... Sabbath is still going to do damage to the 24. It's still going to get some tempo in that sense, but there are no more boosts. The Swallow Potion would have been massive in this game.
Yeah, Swallow Potion.
It would
There's
have
only
probably
one.
won the game for Adzikov, but he did not draw into it. No Whispering Hillock here. Dagon instead to play Fog. So there's no chance to draw into some kind of Mardrum or kind of boost either.
But you can just look to bleed your opponent at this point
Yeah.
and then win with Maruna.
That's also true. And as long as you put Maruna in a row with a Necker, as long as there's more Neckers in the deck, there's a guarantee to copy it. Even if you consume it, there's another one going to come out in the same row. So.
But Monster's Nest could drown it onto a different row.
Yeah.
It's hard to call. It's really hard to call. You got 6 points per turn. 4 points per turn if you play the Necker at another 2. Moonlight in hand is a bit. That's kind of the kicker, really.
This wasn't as one-sided as the other matchups. We mentioned earlier, Ithni and Kalvit Alchemy with Swears have 2 95% win rate answers against Consume. Especially if you draw as badly as TailBot did in the first game against the Alchemy. But in this matchup, you don't have an answer for Sabbath. You can kind of, wait it out. Take the pain for a lot of rounds, and then finally, we saw after many, many turns of just taking blows from Sabbath, finally able to defeat it.
It's tricky also because you know that the Maruna is there, so you don't want to go tall, but at some point you have to eat Neckers, which kind of forces you into a position where you're pulling out big units.
If TailBot can make it so that he eats enough Neckers so there aren't any more, but then your brown pretty kind of sucks as well, so
yeah.
It's tricky. It's definitely tricky. Moonlight is dead, though. Catachan is pretty much dead as well. You can Blood Moon. Blood
Yeah,
Moon's an
I
option.
think, like, honestly, I don't even hate Blood Moon just to drag out the length of the round. Then you're maybe a card down, though. With that said, he's getting 4 points per turn. You know, he's on 72 here to 50. It's nothing to sniff at. And TailBot's gonna have to spend a lot of resources here.
Well, Adzikov was red coin, so he won on even round 1, I believe. So even, like, he's always gonna have his card back. There's no way, there's no spy being played from TailBot, so no way to reverse that either. And he's just bleeding out the Neckers at this point, getting points from Moonlight for free. No more free points from Sabbath, which is really helping him out early on for tempo. But at this point, he's fine with this. I mean, as long as it might just be a top deck war later on. We mentioned the Ithling top deck last game. In this case, it might be a different kind of top deck, but still important nonetheless.
Yeah, unfortunately now Adzikov is unable to take that pass. If he takes that pass, then TailBot will win. But he can still bleed him some more. You know, the Moonlight in hand, maybe you just play it?
Oh, he still has the pass on even.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering how far he pushes that. And
at this point, all the way, I think. I mean, with Maruna, I think you definitely play it this turn and see what TailBot can do to answer it.
But he's got Gils into Monster's Nest.
Yeah, that's an option, but you have to
move
move
it into the middle row.
You have multiple units you have to move if you play front or back.
You move Maruna.
That's also an option, yeah.
Move Maruna into the middle row, and then there's no target.
Yeah, that's true. Which may be why TailBot is leaving that row completely empty, playing around the Maruna, making sure to leave one row that he can move the Maruna to and just have it not do anything, basically. So Adzikov has to think here. Does he want to pass? Does he want to...
Like, this is... I think, like, TailBot might have this.
Consume is consume. Even though Sabbath is strong, in the end, consume might just prevail once again. We're not sure. I'm not sure how many Neckers are left in the deck. I think not too many, because Sabbath did cycle a few out at the start. Although Starting Circle did hit a Necker Warrior in round 1, so those were 11 Neckers total that had to be cycled or played in this game.
And you see that big Arrakis Queen, and you wanna take it, right? But Drowner off of Monster's Nest, off of Gels, is very likely. And then you go into a top deck war that you can't win.
Moonlight is really terrible.
And you can't play Moonlight here because TailBot then puts you on Maruna and just passes because she takes 2 turns.
I think Adzikov knows he's at a disadvantage now. He's
TailBot, man. This has been
a roller coaster of a series.
This has been so, like, you had to put him at a disadvantage here, and, you know, he had to go toll, and he managed to go toll, and he saved that Monster's Nest.
And we talked about it. Werewolf, round 3, no Moonlight. All of a sudden, not looking too strong at 7 points. 16-point Necker, looking a tiny bit better.
But Monster's Nest, does that mean that, I believe, if something moves Maruna, Adzikov can answer and move a target into the row that Maruna's in? Because it only does 3 damage, and you get 1 turn to do something.
Yeah, that's definitely an option.
So, oh, this is insane! This is so clutch.
The sequencing here will really matter.
Oh wow! I'm so excited. I was just so excited to see
Adzikov
this.
has last say, so he has the chance to decide the outcome of this game, or the outcome of the units and their movement and their positioning on this board to enable the best possible Maruna. That when it works, it really works. It's a huge swing, and consume even. I mean, they put up big points.
Yep, so Adzikov, you just throw down the werewolf.
And then your points are my points. That's how Maruna works.
And then TailBot has to go Phoenix, assuming he wants to disrupt the Maruna. So you go Phoenix into, Slizzard, into a Necker, or into Forktail, that sort of thing. Probably I would imagine Slizzard into a Necker.
I'm not even going to try to call this one, because the swing effect of Necker going from one board to the other is going to be so
huge.
many points. That
it's like 30 points.
Even 32 at the moment.
32 at the moment,
Could be more.
Plus the 4 on the Maruna.
So even if TailBot is, 40, 50 points up, and you have to have a big unit. That's how Consume works. Most of the time you can play around Igni, you can play around certain things, but Maruna is much harder to play around.
Yeah, that Monster's Nest draw for Adzikov
was massive.
Is huge. Like, massive. Oh my god. I'm so excited. I just can't. I have no words.
This is the final game of the series. A 6-game series, a nail-biter between 2 amazing Polish players that have really been in the scene for a long time. And it's going to come down.
It is very... Oh my god, that's a 60-point swing. It is so irregular that...
We were talking about 32.
Like,
and there are
makes
no
me
more
so
Neckers.
excited. So Gils,
And
on.
TailBot, he's thinking, he's saying,
No, he's like, oh, it's okay. I've got this. I've got the.
But even with the Drowner, the
Drowner.
Maruna still has the Drowner to take, so it wouldn't be a dead card, even with an empty lane.
Yeah.
It's a lot better, but not great. Barbagazi, but
Then the
this
Drowner
is
pulls the Barbagazi
the
into.
plot twist of the century.
No, because the Drowner off of Adzikov then pulls that back.
TailBot doesn't know that though. TailBot is
Oh no, you hate
very
to see it. I'm so
surprised.
excited.
Let's hope Adzikov does this right.
I love Maruna.
This is it. TailBot, he saw Monster's Nest. He knows it's over. And Adzikov
With
the
the-
Maruna,
oh my,
54-1.
70-point swing off of that Maruna. This is why Succubus sucks to play against. But oh my gosh, congratulations to Adzikov going to Radzikov. TailBot is out of the competition, and that was a series. That was a solid series to watch.
And Adzikov, in the end, with a comeback, reverse sweep. He was 2-0 down. We talked about Consume being targeted and the fact that it looked good for TailBot, but it was going to be an uphill battle, and Adzikov showed why.